Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to be able to welcome you on our second edition of the Revops Mastery Conference titled The Way of the Revenue Warrior. The first edition was in June, and I must say we were so pleased of having amazing speakers among the speaker line and also gathering so many attendees. Of course, this year, the second edition is aiming to upgrade on the topic around revenue operations, but you're going to see that we're going to speak a lot about the whole go-to-market architecture and engine. It's something that we envisioned to do a lot, so I'm really happy to be able to welcome also my partner and friend in RevBrains, George, on stage. So George, I will be adding you here. You're muted, George.
Can you hear me now, Ivan? Everybody?
Yes, great.
Right. Yeah, hello from me. It's super exciting. Our second conference, Revops Mastery, for half a year, in fact, since the first conference. We've seen how much the Revops community and generally the go-to-market community has, on the one hand, increased its understanding on revenue operations, which is very, exciting and satisfactory to see as some outcome.
Yeah, exactly. So we have prepared 2 days of interesting events. What you're going to see, or you already saw based on the agenda, is that today is actually more of a visionary panel discussion talks, and then we are ending with a great presentation from our good friend Jaco van der Koij from Winning by Design, who is going to talk about revenue architecture models. But now let me allow me to speak more about the whole conference and, of course, give some details what is coming ahead of us. So I'm joining the presentation also on stage. We have prepared some stuff. So first of all, we are live on YouTube. Every one of you has received a link when they registered, so you can follow up the conference. We have 2 separate links for the 2 days, so you need to check up your email for the tomorrow session. There is another YouTube link. If you go also on our YouTube page, you can also find the streaming links for today and for tomorrow. Yes, I can say that you are allowed to share the links with someone else that is not have not been able to register. Whatever, the conference is free. Here, the idea is to share more insights around the world of SaaS, around revenue operations, around go-to-market. People already commenting, hi everyone. Yes, all sessions are going to be recorded, and all different sessions are going to be uploaded in the coming days on our YouTube channel. You're going to receive all the links on your emails that you have registered with. Some numbers here, as I already mentioned, 2 days of great event, of great topics and great presentations, over 10 hours combined of Revops Mastery. We are really, really honored to have more than 20 speakers on the line. It's just an amazing lineup. You're going to be able to meet with amazing people, and we have more than 250 registered people on the event. Of course, just to be honest, it's a huge amount of hours, so not everyone who is going to attend the full event, but we're actually aiming to meet with great people and, of course, be able to, after that, view the recordings of each of the sessions that you were not able to attend. If you are also looking forward to some specific presentation, just type it in the comments. As you can see, I can also pull out comments and, like this comment, I like it really much. Thank you. Bondokov is looking sharp. So I can bring comments on stage. I cannot bring people, unfortunately. But if you want to comment something, if you want to ask questions, do it anytime you like. There is no hard question, or there is no censorship, if I must say. We're streaming live in 4 time zones, so that is why the conference has such a diverse starting time in the different days. There are more than 15 companies, leading SaaS companies and consulting businesses presented on the conference. And yes, as I already mentioned, you're going to receive the video recordings, and you're going to receive also bonus content in form of some of the presentations on the conference, and of course, additional documentation that you're going to hear about along the conference. Today we already started. We're ending at around 4:30 Central European time. Tomorrow we are starting pretty early at 10 a.m. Central European time, and we're ending at 6:30 European time. George and I, we're joining from Bulgaria, where our headquarters is, but our team, our client advisor, are joining from diverse locations. So we have Nico Agolop from UK and Charlie Cowan also joining from London. We have Marcus Benning and Steven Morel from Germany. We have Darren Fay from US. We have Pavel Nikal from Poland, and we have also Ariano Lieski from Oslo, Norway. So as you can see, we managed to gather an amazing team of great minds. So I hope they're going to be able to ignite your mind as well. So that's the whole idea. Just before to continue, maybe George, just to say a few words about RevBrains, just to present ourselves. So there are people that are watching us for the first time. Maybe it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think, by the way, RevBrains is having a birthday very soon. We are turning 1 year in terms of age. And I think RevBrains appeared at a very interesting moment in the development of business, of SaaS business in Europe. As you know, and maybe some people that are watching us right now know, we are focused on helping scaling businesses. Usually those are, like, a lot of our clients are Series A, Series B funded businesses that need to undergo tremendous growth sometimes in a relatively short amount of time, and we are helping them do that basically, but by being more efficient and effective at the same time, and basically by reducing go-to-market expense and general expenses, you can scale, much faster than usual. Because revenue operations, what we do is about bringing visibility, like more visibility, more accountability, more ownership into the go-to-market process, and really making sure that marketing, sales, success, service, account management, all those teams that are responsible for customer experience are creating synergies, together. And that's what we are all about, creating the synergies between marketing, sales, and success through operationalization, better and more improved operationalization. Of course, on the one hand, this is about data, technology, reports, trusting your data better. But on the other hand, something that's, I believe, even more important, or, also something super vital to mention, it's the mindset, the culture that you need to change, especially on the leadership teams, the go-to-market leadership teams, but also everybody who is a part of go-to-market. Basically, how do we make sure we really think together? Everybody in go-to-market thinks together, plans together, strategizes together. So really, as mentioned, we are creating those synergies.
Yeah, exactly. As you can see on the background, they're waving, just a second, wiggling warriors. So it's, like as you can see, this is our brand around the conference. It's, the idea behind, and thank you, George, for bringing this. I have a question for you, but think on that. Maybe I will address it later. But looking back in the year that we actually was, being through in 2023, what are for you personally, what are the most inspiring moments that you have in your professional work, of course, not in personal life, but if you want to share personal life as well. But I just wanted to highlight that the Way of the Revenue Warriors is actually dedicated to each and every one of you guys out there that are constantly trying to, of course, we're talking about revenue, but the real goal behind the revenue is to make people happy. The one way you can make people happy is to make a company, or to create a company where everybody as an employee within this company is feeling appreciated, happy, there is a professional development within the company. And on the other hand, of course, the clients. If the client is not happy, there is no revenue, there is no repetitive growth, there is no sustainable growth. So we do believe that when we speak about revenue and the people that are really eager to create sustainable growth within their companies, we're speaking actually about people having the cause and having the need of making someone else happy with their services or products or whatever. So it's all about you guys. We're going to meet you with such people as well. And of course, now I just want to go through the agenda and just have, the ability to give the honor to each and every one of our speakers. So bringing the presentation back to the screen. George, if you want to comment on, some of the topics, I will be happy about that. We are right after this intro. We are continuing with the panel discussion called the Revops as the good elephant in the room. We have amazing people. These are some of our finest client advisors, and also Timur, who is a great friend of ours, a Revops expert with long years of experience. This is some kind of a foundational topic that we want to, open the talk about revenue operations and go-to-market. Then something interesting, we are going to present, me and George, and we're having also Nicola as well on the panel. We're going to present our pretty new go-to-market singularity blueprint, which is something that maybe George share one sentence about that, because then we need to speak more in detail.
It's hard to summarize it in one sentence, but basically it's what revenue operations really is, because there are so many definitions of revenue operations. And basically we look at revenue operations as a tool to master your go-to-market and to achieve a real excellence in your go-to-market with the resources that you have. And we've managed to visualize this whole process of transformation of the company.
Exactly. And you're going to see how we actually visualize the whole journey to the point of, we call it singularity, of course, for a reason. Then this person, I don't think he needs so much of, like introducing or presenting. Jaco is joining us for the second edition as well. He was part of the first conference, did an amazing performance, not only in terms of insights and content. He's going to speak about winning by design's revenue architecture models for Revops. Really looking for that presentation. And with this presentation, we are actually ending a very packed, very short, but very fresh day one. And then on day two, we start very early, as I mentioned, and the line here is just amazing. We are starting with our great friend and colleague, Alexander Mueller from Germany, who is going to talk about something very annoying or pain in the ass for some people, but everybody needs to do it, annual planning. Then we are moving to the topic of Tony Holbein, our great friend from Glowbox. They recently published a great book around Revops called "This is what strategic Revops looks like," and he's going to share with us some insights around the ebook. So looking really forward to that. For the first time, we have Brooke Trezder. She's a senior vice president of Revops in Vault.io. And she's been speaking about a very, very niche and very needed topic, compensation principles when you are in the startup industry. Then we have our great colleague and client advisor, Kostadin, who is the head of customer success and customer support at Expandio. He's going to speak about the customer success operations and how actually AI is helping that motion to be more effective. Really interesting topic. After that, we have a great person that I was able to meet recently, and I'm actually going to do an interview with him about the frontline lessons of the trenches of scaling. This is Oli Sharpe from Abacom, VP of Sales and ex-managing director in EMEA for SalesLoft. Really wise guy, so pay attention to what he's going to say. Charlie Cohen, this is I don't know, maybe George, you can present Charlie.
Yeah, I believe one of the new stars in revenue operations in Europe, a person who has, been in the trenches, who has done a lot of sales work before. He has been in, I think, every sales position, and he has. The good thing about Charlie is that he has this, I think, very he manages to explain revenue operations in a very easy, very understandable manner, which I believe is super crucial for today, because Revops as a concept, sometimes it's hard to grasp. That's why the multiple definitions of revenue operations. But if you look at how Charlie does it, I strongly recommend you to follow
Yeah,
him on social media on LinkedIn as
Revops
well.
for dummies or something,
Exactly.
like, yeah,
Exactly.
very,
And
very good guy in terms of presentation. So we're looking forward to hear what he's going to say about the maturity model. Uh, and then one of our senior client advisor, a great friend and a super experienced guy, Marcus Benning, who is going to speak about um, the catalyzation side of RevOps and how actually RevOps helps achieve commercial effectiveness. This is something that we're going to touch upon also in our go-to-market blueprint, go-to-market singularity blueprint. Actually, Marcus was one of the contributors to that topic as well. Then we have Slav Stankov, the VP of product at Rush. Really interesting because we're not speaking so much about product-led growth. We have B2B SaaS mostly in our portfolio and businesses, but we actually wanted to also bring the topic around POG. So we're going to speak about building scoring models for product-led growth companies. Very, very interesting. Then I'm going to speak with Andreas Drakos, the Senior Director of Revenue Operations at Supersite. The title was co-created by me and him. Silo Killer, qu'est-ce que c'est? There is a song about that. It's called Psycho Killer, qu'est-ce que c'est? So are you going to kill the silos really, or are you just going to simulate alignment? He's going to speak about his experience and how actually RevOps helped him grow the company. Then we have one of our distinguished friends and client advisors from the other side of the Atlantic, Darren Fay, who is going to speak about how actually OKRs are helping create the best-in-class revenue operations model and architecture. A really insightful topic. We have also invited a great friend and a partner from Coefficient, the head of revenue, Ben Davis, who is going to share with us some real examples actually about data enabling during massive growth. He's going to speak about Klaviyo and Miro. Both companies, they don't need any kind of presentation or introduction these days. So really insightful topic as well. Amazing person from also the other side of the Atlantic, Sandy Robinson, as a Senior Vice President of RevOps at Patra Corporation. Also something very important in revenue operations when we see the different layers we're going to speak about later. She's going to talk about actually how you're bringing the best tech stack to help your revenue operations exceed. Frankenstack, so ditch your Frankenstack. I really like this title. Then we have Jola Grutte, who is an advisor and a consultant for scaling B2B SaaS startups. He's going to speak about the elephant in the room. The other one is, about the AI. As you can see, we are not so much speaking about AI. We have two presentations, but yes, during the whole conference, we're going to speak about AI and how actually, AI-driven RevOps is helping you be better in what you're going to do in your company. Other senior advisor in RevBrains, Paweł Niko, joining from Poland. He's traveling from the US today. He's going to speak about mastering the pipeline dynamics, the interplay between volume, value, velocity, and conversion. Also something very, very important when it comes to performance and metrics. And we're ending our conference with one of the, I think, most intriguing topics currently. This is the topic about actually how you grow as a career in RevOps. Where do you start? What are the different, job titles or experiences where you can grow from there to a RevOps position. And Adam Hoare, who is the Chief Operation Officer and the partner in RevSearch, a company that is specialized in headhunting revenue operations leaders, is going to show us some stuff around that. So I hope really that this conference is going to bring you lots of insights. Really eager to hear your opinion as well. Don't only ask questions, but also comment, because I know for a fact that there are lots of revenue leaders that are going to watch this conference, that they have a huge experience, and I think it's just an amazing opportunity to hear what they want to say as well. George, anything to add here?
Yeah, while I was listening to
George,
you
I want to bring that. So George is having a constriction going on at his neighbors. So that is
it
why
was unexpected.
Unexpected constriction. So it's it's the reality of the life event. So we just wanted to give you that heads up before you hear something.
No, but I think we should be fine right now.
Okay.
Hopefully it's over. But hopefully it's over and we don't hear anything else. But as I was listening to you, Ivan, presenting all those topics and all those speakers, again, what came to my mind is the diversity, basically this diversity that RevOps brings in terms of topics and how it can benefit your business. That's why we are saying we know the pillars of revenue operations. We're speaking a lot about them, starting from strategy and planning, going to how basically we communicate and we break down the strategy into real processes. How do we host those processes into the tool, and then how are we making sure the insights and the data that we need, to tell the story of how the strategy is performing is there. But if you look deeper, starting from, let's say, sales compensation, forecasting, how to say, insights-driven culture, those are a lot of, very interesting topics. And as I mentioned at the beginning, this year, starting from the end or the middle of 2022 up to now, has been the transition of this period from growth at all costs to more efficient, more effective growth. And I think European landscape, specifically the landscape with the fast scaling businesses, also has undergone through that period this realization that revenue operations really plays a very crucial role in the go-to-market organization.
Yeah, and I think the word that we can bring on the table is sustainability. So it was not something that startup founders a couple of years ago or 2 years ago were thinking about. It was exactly growth at all costs, really fast, really aggressive. And now actually we speak about this sustainable growth, which can be achieved by implementing revenue operations in your current organization. Of course, on the very specific level, which you're going to speak about that with our panelists that are actually, we see them also joining backstage, which it's really nice that everybody is on time. Something also very important, there is a risk from all the speakers that we have invited, someone missed his panel or the hours or the slots, or he's going to be or she's going to be late, or there is no internet connection. So bear with us, that's the reality. I am actually the person who is managing the streaming. We decided to do it by ourselves because that's the best way we can experience the whole event. Next year we're planning to have the third edition maybe live physically, hosted somewhere in Europe on a secret location. But for now, if you just see me wandering around with my look on the different screens and stuff, it's not because I'm bored, but because I'm doing lots of things around that. And just before going to the real things and having the panel discussion, I'm going to invite on stage a very interesting person. I'm going to invite the AI. I'm going to use my phone. There is a new feature on ChatGPT called, you can actually speak with the AI, not only type. Let's hear what she has to say. Hi, can I call you Melanie for the purpose of this conversation?
Of course. Bond, you can call me Melanie if you'd like. How can I assist you today?
Yeah, I'm Bond actually. Sorry. You are actually Melanie. Hi, you are live at the conference, The Way of the Revenue Warrior, which is dedicated to the SaaS industry. We're going to speak about revenue operation, its importance, but of course, the topic around AI and how AI is actually influencing the industry is very important. So you're our main guest now, and I just want to ask you how AI is going to influence the SaaS industry in the next years.
Hello again, Mr. Bond, and thank you for having me as a guest at the Way of the Revenue Warrior Conference. The role of AI in the SaaS industry is becoming increasingly pivotal. In the next few years, we can expect AI to drive innovations in customer experience, predictive analytics, and automated workflows, among other areas. For instance, AI will make customer segmentation more precise, helping marketing teams create highly targeted campaigns. It will also optimize sales funnels through real-time analytics, allowing companies to capitalize on opportunities quicker than ever. Additionally, the predictive capabilities of AI can help in resource allocation and strategic planning, giving businesses a competitive edge. In summary, AI is set to be a transformative force in the SaaS industry, streamlining operations and making data-driven decisions more effective. I hope that provides a good overview for your audience, Mr. Bond. Would you like to delve into any of these areas further?
Thank you, Melanie. I just want to ask you one last question. What is the year? Let's just think in projection. What is the year in the next year or decade? Just name me a year where the AI is going to overtake the SaaS companies, and most of the operational processes and all go-to-market processes are going to be mostly driven by the AI. Do you see something in that future, and how much of the percentage of the whole go-to-market engine is going to be overtaken by the AI?
That's a thought-provoking question, mister. While it's hard to pinpoint an exact year, I'd say that within the next decade, it's quite plausible to see AI handling a significant portion of operational and go-to-market processes in SaaS companies. If I had to estimate, I'd say around 60 to 70% of these processes could be automated or enhanced by AI. However, it's essential to note that the human element will likely continue to play a vital role, particularly in areas requiring creative thinking, ethical considerations, and emotional intelligence. So, while AI will increasingly influence the SaaS industry, a balance with human expertise will probably remain important. Would you agree with this assessment, Mr. Bond?
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you, Melanie. We're moving to the next section. Have a great day. Maybe we're going to speak with you along the conference as well. But bye for now. Yeah, well, we have a news. We have a big highlight already on the conference. 60 to 70% of the processes in the SaaS companies are going to be impacted by the AI or maybe overtaken. Saying that, I am ending this kind of an intro session, and we're moving right now directly to the panel discussion. And I am really happy to be able to invite on stage, just a second here, Ben O'Shea, Nicola Golot, Taimur, and Ariana. Ta-da-da! Now we have a full screen of great people. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello,
Hey,
everyone.
Ben. Hey, Ben. Can you hear us? I see there is some kind of internet discrepancies around his internet connection. Do you see Ben actually okay? George,
Yeah.
maybe you can assist me on that.
Yeah, more or less. I think if Ben can hear us, I hope it will be fine. Can you hear us, Ben?
I can hear you guys. Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Okay, guys. So, really honored to have you as guests on our opening panel session on the conference. I hope, or I know that you actually heard our last conversation with our previous keynote speaker, Melanie. I would love to, to talk about that as well, maybe, during the discussion. But I would just give the floor to each and every one of you, just, with a couple of sentences to present yourself, maybe in a very interesting way. Do you like fishing? Do you like guitar playing or something else? Or is just RevOps in your mind? I don't know. But let's start with the lady. Hey, Ariana, really happy to have you among us.
Hi, thanks. I really hate these kinds of questions because it's like when they do the icebreakers in a new job or in school, it's like, what's your favorite song? I immediately forget every song I've ever heard in my life. So not a fan of that. Definitely.
So what's your favorite song?
Yeah, so definitely I'm a one-track mind. I'm a puzzle solver. That's why I find myself in RevOps. That's why I enjoy working in RevOps, because it's fellow people who have, debatably healthy, unhealthy relationship with this sort of puzzle solving and problems. So yeah, I'm currently at SEMrush as a RevOps expert, heading up the process and data excellence division.
Yeah, you're part of our client advisor network as well.
Yes, that as well, of course.
Yeah, great. Hey, Timur.
Hey, Ivan. I was going to say, I guess like with AI, you don't need us anymore. You could just have a series of the whole panel run by AI.
Come on, guys. Come on, guys. We need to invite the AI as well.
Well, yeah. So things that I enjoy, I am a big biker. I love doing anything on two wheels, as well as I would say running as well. So that's something I really enjoy. I've been in RevOps for 10 years. In my last role, I was head of RevOps at Celix. I got acquired with Perpetua. I took a little sabbatical. Now I've started my own consulting practice in RevOps, but at the same time, I'm building, figuring out if I validating an idea to start a business.
Oh, great. That's interesting, intriguing. Yeah, Ben.
Yeah. So, I very much kind of the way that Ariana said, I'm a problem solver, puzzle kind of guy. I grew up, building Legos. That was kind of my jam. It's funny. I find looking back on life, it all kind of led to this, and it makes just a lot of sense where I'm at now. So RevOps is it's great. It's a fun thing. It's problem solving. It's putting out fires. It's being a strategic partner for the go-to-market functions. But me personally, I like to golf and hang out with my kids and do all kinds of fun things there. I was previously the head of revenue operations for Superb AI, and I also started my own consulting company here, Rev Plus, and then I also get to help out with being a client advisor here at RevBrain. So really enjoy kind of being in the RevOps world and just kind of discussing everything that's going on. So excited to be here.
Yeah. Thanks, man. We're also happy to have you on our team and, on the conference as well. And then we have Nick joining us from London as well. Hi, Nick.
Hey, guys. So I'm VP of RevOps at CloudCall, client advisor at RevBrains, and I'm also a part-time advisor for SaaS companies trying to build RevOps from scratch or upskill someone to actually do that. I've always been a massive advocate for the idea of centralizing operations and having a team run things centrally in every company. And I started my career almost 15 years ago in sales ops, and progressively went into mark ops and CS ops. And today, I think one of the biggest and most valuable idea for any business is to treat revenue as in one function and having this not single source of truth, more because that's a bit more kind of conceptual, but a lead to cash optimized process internally and externally for customers and also everybody internally as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick. Nick is one of our most dedicated advisors as well, and he worked with us on the go-to-market singularity blueprint that we're going to speak and present on our next panel for an hour or so. Yeah, guys. So George, maybe to start with you, like what is the central definition? We live in a world where everybody is talking about revenue operations in a different way. There is a meme that what my mother thinks I'm doing and stuff like that. So if you're trying to explain to your mother what you're doing, maybe it will be very difficult. But let's explain what is revenue operations to the audience that actually benefits from it.
Yeah, exactly. I think of course, there are multiple definitions about revenue operations, but I think it very much depends, as you mentioned, Ivan, who you're speaking with in order to make sure you have the most precise, let's say, definition. So this person you're having a conversation with really sees the value, the impact that revenue operations can bring. In general, if we need to take, let's say, a short definition, basically, for me, it's the science of making growth predictable, making growth efficient, making growth in general more scalable, ensuring scalability in the company. Of course, how we are doing that through centralizing go-to-market operations. And when it comes to go-to-market operations, we can go into a lot of details, what's really included into that. But if we want to keep it short, I would say this as a major, definition, let's say. But curious to see, of course, what the others are thinking about that, because I'm sure there will be a lot of kind of interpretation on that.
Yeah, if someone wants to jump in without me giving him the word, no problem. Let's do it. Maybe just to ask Ben, from your experience, you are sitting in US, and we know for a fact that revenue operations as a terminology and philosophy comes from US, and the markets or the perception of around revenue operations is slightly different when it comes to Europe and the US. So what would you say about the definition that George mentioned, and maybe to add some perspective on that?
Yeah, I think it's I like the science. I mean, the way that George said that, it really is kind of an art form. I find it to be a far more creative role than I ever would have expected. If you're sitting from the outside, you're like, oh, they're technical people and they just kind of solve problems. And but it's really creative role where you get to kind of sit back and you look at marketing, you look at sales, you look at customer success, and you say, how can I get all three of these teams pointed the same direction? And in my experience, we've had marketing teams that are, their main goal is to get an MQL across the board, right? But if that MQL isn't doing anything on the sales side, right, where it just gets over there, and then all of a sudden sales says, yeah, that wasn't a great lead, thanks. What's the point of that? So it's kind of aligning all of our goals and making sure that marketing is targeting the right people that sales can actually convert. And then on the other side, it's is sales starting a relationship early on so that customer success can renew these people and build this lifelong relationship with customers. It's aligning all three of these teams to make sure that, again, we're all kind of pointed the same direction. We're all pointed towards revenue. And so, it's like I said, very creative in how you can go about doing that. Whether it's aligning KPIs, OKRs, SLAs, whatever term you want to use. But it's building a structure that is aligned across all of those teams.
Yeah, totally agree.
To that point, I think it's actually spot on. I think it's I think if you ask anybody within revenue operations, you get the discrepancies around what is and what, how can we actually put everything into one bucket. But I think what we all can agree is what it's not, right? What it's not is a just blind executioner of systems and reporting and just making sure that we get a number in front of someone, right? That is the end goal, but we need to make sure that probably like 1,000 different things happen before that, and getting those things done in an organized way where everybody is aligned and 100% aware about what's going on in each one of those stages is the goal, the end goal, the overall goal. but it's also the hardest thing to do because you're playing with different org structures, different ways of doing things. Like, for example, your idea around the MQL passing on to sales and nothing happening. You have different strategies around compensation that would potentially even solve that significantly, right? To make sure that people have the vision that it's not an MQL, it's revenue on the table, right, for the whole company. And if we miss that, we're missing it as a team, as an org, not as, an individual. So I think once we get that across the board and make sure, that's where the breaking the silos actually lie, is in making sure that everybody understands the end goal, that we're all fighting for the same thing rather than just doing your piece, which is important for the whole thing, but you have to take a look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, totally agree. Timur?
Yeah, and I think like I agree with everybody, what everyone has said so far. I'll probably just build on top of this. And the way I see it is like when you look at revenue operations, what is our mission? It's something similar to what George said, is driving efficiency in our go-to-market engine, right? Efficiency and predictability. How we do it is through building that alignment, was both Nicholas and Ben mentioned. It's like revenue generation is a team sport, and how you actually, let's say, get everybody to work together is where the alignment comes through. That's our job as revenue operators, is how to build that alignment, make sure all the pieces of the engine is working smoothly together. And that alignment comes from when you start taking a layer deeper, is building that like single view of business, exactly what Nicholas mentioned, right? Having that aligning everybody on the same metrics. The other piece is also then, okay, now how do we align everybody on the process and the tech stack, right? Once you have, when everybody's looking at the same, we're running towards the same goals, we need to have some like standardized processes, standardized tech stack as well. So I think like that's how I see it. So just
Yeah, totally agree. Oriana, something to add? I have a couple of questions here.
Yeah, I think all the keywords kind of have been hit here. The left and the right brain, the science married with the creativity and the problem solving alignment. For me, in recent times, it's been maybe this light bulb moment that we're the enabler, but also the driver of strategy. And to break that down and not just have it be fluffy words, it's understanding, here's our commercial strategy. What do we actually have in place to facilitate that? How well are we doing that? And then the feedback loop of what should the strategy be based on what we're saying and what we're doing. So I think that connection is the critical one that I see, and the most exciting space, I think, for RevOps to be in.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the misunderstanding around the real key role for RevOps people is something that we need to tackle, and we are tackling this by doing such events and speaking about that. George, okay, we all agree that this is about alignment. This is about the full picture. This is about people being able to get on the top view and see everything on the bottom laid out as one, from the very beginning to the very end, or to the infinity end. How do we start actually? What are the steps? What are the different layers maybe that we need to have in mind by having this kind of, when we speak about revenue operations, we have two main scenarios. Companies that are to the very best moment of their development, where they can start or allowed or have the freedom to start from scratch building something. And then we have the moment where they're already companies with heavy engines, with lots of processes, and they want to transform to revenue operations. How are you seeing those two scenarios actually played?
Yes, you touched upon a lot of things actually while I try to take notes so I don't forget on anything. But of course, the earlier you start integrating revenue operations into your business, of course, we believe that's better, because the more mature your go-to-market gets, the more people you hire, the more clients you get, it's harder to change. It's like this with almost everything that happens in business. That's why we believe revenue operations should exist in businesses. Since, let's say, if we look at rounds of funding, seed to Series A, and then you start thinking about really how strategy should be operationalized. On the other hand, as the other, like I think several people mentioned already, there are two sides to revenue operations. On the one hand, the more popular side, which like when someone needs a report, when we have the next board meeting, people start thinking about us. People start thinking about collaborating with revenue operations, around those data pieces, or when something is broken, let's say with the sales process, everybody, would go to revenue operations. But the other piece, I think, is equally important, and it's something that we believe is starting to gain traction, but still not everybody is doing. This is really the part with the true alignment. What I mean with true alignment is really making sure the mindset of all the leaders, let's say marketing, sales, success leaders, is all about working together with your peer. It's all about, okay, we have hit our MQL goal and we are marketers, but then are we celebrating if, let's say, sales have not produced any opportunity or have not closed anything? I mean, why do we need to celebrate those MQLs if they don't turn into let's say closed opportunities? And really making sure, like, if you are doing well in revenue operations, if you have really well designed revenue operations, those things should be easy for you to understand, and that's how your go-to-market teams start really working together. Something else which I see as let's say something that's revenue operations people need to work on is, like, I see in some companies, even sellers or marketers, they find it hard to figure out exactly what are all the things that RevOps can help them with. So it's very important, even for those people, for the RevOps leader in the company, to make it very clear what can be expected from this team. For example, you can say, we're helping you with 3 specific things, with 3 specific areas. We help you plan better, we help you execute better, and we help you have accurate insights. And when you have an idea, problem, something to discuss on those 3 things, that's us who you can discuss it with, right?
Yeah, exactly. Someone wants to add here something? Yeah. I'm going to give the word to the people that were most fastly removed their mute button, so it was time or now.
So I basically want to disagree with George on one point. He about when is the right time.
Disagree. Yes.
When is the right time to build RevOps? Because I was of the opinion, hey, let's build off RevOps as soon as possible. I think, like, now my viewpoint is, like, usually C-stage companies don't have product market fit, and at that point you do things that don't scale. And only when like scaling efficiently is a priority, that's when you should start building RevOps team. So in most cases is after Series A.
Right. Yeah, that's, by the way, that's very interesting point here that we are bringing.
I have to speak up here, George. You know that, because I'm a RevOps Series A kind of person, big time.
Yeah, Ariana, bring it on.
I think it's always the right time for RevOps. It looks different, and there's no one size fits all for sure. But what I see a lot is happening very often. Oh, we're too small for RevOps. We're too small for someone to bring in that level of expertise. And I understand that, right? The focus is different. But what happens inevitably, despite not having RevOps, if a certain level of success is achieved, you progress. What we're seeing is they've already managed to incur so much debt in that short period of time. They've already managed to, especially if it's someone who hadn't come in with sort of RevOps expertise, they're overcomplicating, or they're not building out enough. They're building without the scalability in mind. They're building out without, and ultimately, after a year or two, you're expecting to have all this data to leverage in the future for decision making, and ultimately it's useless because it hasn't been defined or collected in any usable way. So you end up almost starting from scratch, or at least on the back foot, when you do think, oh, it's time to bring in RevOps. So it's usually always a beat too late. I think that's why, arrangements like consulting, like RevBrains, like having fractional RevOps, all these solutions are in place today because it can never be too early. But I'm a very strong proponent of RevOps at every stage.
Yeah, likewise. I have to also kind of second that, because I think the key word there is debt, right? You eventually grow into this snowball where it kind of works today, might work, but then this might work keeps on becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where you realize a year or two down the road where you're just patchworking everything rather than actually understanding the root causes of things and actually going deep to fix the problem, rather than just do one thing here and there. And when you get down to the 2-year mark, you realize that if I had started this 2 years ago, I wouldn't necessarily be having these issues right now. So I do agree with the point that you brought up, Timur, 100%. The product market fit is when people start realizing that something's off, and that's when they go after RevOps. But that action, that call to action, that trigger is already too late, which is what brings up to the point of that Ariana said, which is, if you had done that sooner, you wouldn't necessarily be realizing that you even need RevOps. Or you'd be like, okay, so we're down this path, so let's keep on going and building on what we've already have. So yeah, unless you're a massive company, which is a very different story. But we're not talking, I think, we're all not talking about past Series D at best. So let's just be clear.
Yeah, we're going to clear out the best fit for RevOps, or at least companies that we're speaking along the conversation. Ben, something to add here, in this kind of a
just real quick. Yeah, I like what Timur said there. It is important to have a product market fit, and kind of, if you're going to build structure, it's nice to know what you're building structure for and what the end goal really is. If you're in too early, it is. I'm not going to say that you shouldn't have an operations person who's RevOps minded early on. I think there's a ton of value that we can bring to younger companies even before they have a product market fit. But I think there is value in that space for sure, where we can bring in a lot more return on their investment in us once there's a product market fit. But where I find a lot of fun to be had in RevOps is much earlier than that. Like Ariana and Nicholas both said, there's a ton of value that we can bring. It looks a little different, if we're there Series A or even earlier. It's probably more of an operations role where you're building out Salesforce or HubSpot, and you're probably more a little bit, in the weeds of the technology and kind of acting as an admin or an architect. And you're, not quite as strategic, but you're building out the base. You're building out your strong trunk of a tree, is what I like to call it, so that you can kind of flourish after that. It's I find that early on, if we can get in the weeds of things, we can start creating data early on. One, with early companies, they need funding, right?
Yeah.
And they need data to take to these VC people or banks or whoever they're trying to get their money from. And we can help drive that, right? I think having a strong RevOps function early on, it pays dividends in every single way, financially, not just in, the structure and things like that, but what we can bring to our founders, to our boards, to our, CEOs. And I think that's, if you can set yourself up as a strategic partner with these companies, whether it's a fractional role, sometimes early on, they don't need a full-time person. That's fine.
Yeah.
Hire me for 10 hours or whatever, and I'll help you out. But, that's part of it, right? Where you have to understand that we're expensive. We're not going to lie about that, right? We bring a lot of value though. And if you allow us to do our work, it can show in so many different ways. So, I think I'm going to advocate for early adoption of RevOps, but it's probably not going to be RevOps until you're probably more in the market fit.
Yeah.
Right.
And maybe I can just clarify over here. What I meant by is just like investing in RevOps, building a team. But I agree with everything what you guys have said. I think it's like having that RevOps mindset early on is very important.
Yeah.
And I think that what it might look like might be very different, right? So it might be, hey, something like RevBrains coming in, or having like professional people setting the good foundation, but building that, let's say, infrastructure, hiring a big team at that moment, I would say probably doesn't make sense. So that's
So
what to clarify.
Yeah.
But I agree with everything we just said.
Yeah, you get into the everlasting discussion around we are expensive and therefore we need budget, but to get the budget you need funding and you need to be evolved in your series. But then to do that you need data, which only RevOps can really get because you combine everything. So it's an endless vicious cycle that we need to then prove our value without even being at the company to then get that to be built in the first place. It's a very tricky elephant in the room.
that is why I think the last presentation of the conference tomorrow is going to speak about career pathways and this kind of a new hype around the job title, revenue operations leader, whatever, VP of RevOps. I think people going into that direction like us, we are. That is why the conference is called Warriors, and we are not fighting the client. We're fighting our internal fears or the fears of the people or the companies that we work with, and this is a very road paved with stones. And as Nick mentioned, it's something that really we need to clear out where it starts and there where it evolves of end, because we're going to speak about that. There is no ending on RevOps. That is why we speak about perpetual growth. We speak about sustainable growth. And we at RevBrains, that is why RevBrains is called RevBrains, because we think that, like the revenue operations is the brain of the company. It's something that, like the brain, it's more down to earth tool or, part of the body than the heart. But it's still something that also sparks creativity, as Ariana mentioned. And I think here it's, like when we compare startups and scale-ups, in a relationship between two people, there is always the heart at the beginning, much more bigger than the brain, right? And that is why when we speak about startups and investing, people, they're just they're living their dream. They're founding a company. This company has just recently got some money. They're starting to sense the product market fit, emotion. And in this moment, you're more, you're hard driven person. So when people like us with the big brains, expensive or not, whatever, coming in, you're like, oh wow, wait, I'm it's not the time now. I'm sensing it. Everything is really great. I feel it with the heart. And then, as Timur mentioned, or Nick mentioned, the time comes where SaaS companies, what they do, they gather immense amount of data, no matter if they want it or not. But that's actually their most valuable asset. And at some point, you're starting to think about, oh, what I'm doing with this data, is this data accurate? Is this data used for the best purposes of my business? And then the leaders within the company, they're starting to search for solutions. And one of the solutions among many is revenue operations. So from my perspective, or from the experience that we had already with RevBrains and some of our clients. So here the question towards you would be, if you were a business owner, or at least a person that has the power to decide, exactly, I think in the future, revenue operation is not going to be an option. It's going to be just a part of the journey of building a company. And this is, I think, the way that we need to speak about that. It's not an alternative to something else. You cannot go with siloed and disconnected departments anymore. And I think this needs to be brought to the people. But from your perspective, if you were a business owner, if you want to found a company, how you're going to approach this, like start from where we're speaking about several layers of RevOps. I'm going to show you a map here on our website, pretty fresh website as you speak, but someone can take over the word. as I'm sharing the screen here. Or if nobody wants, George?
Yeah, maybe I can jump in here.
You're a
It's
founder of
interesting.
a business, right? But it's not a SaaS one.
Exactly. But I have a passion for entrepreneurship
Let
in
me
anyway.
check
So
how
maybe
how the screen share is going to work here. Yeah, sorry guys, just speak here.
are you going to share something? The model? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sharing just the the something that is on our website.
Yeah, of course. And maybe one sentence regarding the discussion of when is best time to implement revenue operations, because it's also connected to what we started now. Of course, when you start building your, even founding team, or when you're hiring your first people, it's crucial for you as a founder, who, of course, takes the business very seriously, very, it's very something very dear to the heart. It's super for me, critical to check if those people understand in general how the modern go-to-market works, how the modern revenue engine works, and that's what I think building revenue operations at a very early stage would mean. Really having people that understand where we need to be at in, let's say, several months or several years' time. Having first that mindset, and being able at the beginning to test some things in a very scientific way, and then when it's time to scale, really be able to invest on time in process design, in implementation, and so on. So yeah, Ivan, what's can you say what else you wanted to discuss? Maybe
I jump in here
a little.
actually,
Yeah.
because I'm in the very similar vein of thought now with this analogy of this honeymoon period, or this, let's call it a baby, right? Somebody's business is their baby. Investing, I mean, someone is doing the operational work. It's someone who's not very good at it. It's someone who's been the most kind of puzzle oriented and attracted to. You recognize this person immediately when you go to this environment, because they are burnt out. They're just about to leave, because they've been doing kind of this ad hoc type of RevOps work because there has been a vacuum. When they leave, there's a knowledge vacuum that happens as well. So you lose all of that kind of legacy knowledge for the one person who was looking after it. And with this is your most precious baby. You would never invest and say, okay, the lead gen person is also going to do sales, and they're also going to do customer success. You invest in the correct skill set and tools. Why wouldn't that apply to RevOps, right? Instead, you kind of entrust it to someone's part-time, in addition to their day job, of what they do full-time. So I think if it's more of a mindset and education piece, that you should entrust your baby, kind of the future and success, to those who are invested, those who learn, who are involved in mentorship communities, and really are RevOps people career-wise. So I think it's a great analogy.
Yeah, and that is actually something that is becoming more and more common, given the world post-pandemic and budgets are completely down the toilet. We don't really have a real pathway to actually get more net new revenue, or even we all then have to focus a lot more on retention, of course, but we don't have that approach to making sure that we can get everybody that to do a specific skill set within the companies and focus on that, even though that is the absolute single way of properly doing it. So then what companies do is they basically try to get this one person fits all approach and task that person with an impossible task, which is trying to do everything. And they usually just take something that that person has done, that the person does well, and then just blows it out of proportion. And that expands into systems, into go-to-market, into everything. And then suddenly you have a lot of dependencies on that person. And then if the person only leaves, but that don't even consider that, because that is obviously a risk. But even if that person stays, everything is based off of one person's view of what it should be, right? And that is a massive flaw.
Yeah.
And companies are doing more and more of that because they realize we don't have the money, but we need to do it. So let's just outsource, even though we're not, to someone else who could kind of do it, but not 100%. And that person will just keep on doing it until the foreseeable future, when we can then think about it, which is also another problem, because you're just postponing the issue, not solving it, which is the whole point of RevOps, to not do that, right? And keep on fixing rather than doing patchwork.
Yeah, totally agree. Someone else to add? Okay, guys. Yeah, so I think when we speak about the way that things are actually developing within the company, we need to talk about, and I showed them. I don't know if we at RevBrains, we call them several layers of RevOps. The different layers, but what are the different elements of revenue operations that you actually really want to emphasize about, to be really strict that this needs to be executed, or at least needs to be start building foundations to. Maybe Ben or anyone else who wants to start.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's the data, right? I think RevOps, and especially early on, you're going to get people who know what they're doing in their systems, and as we just discussed, you'll get early on, you'll have a VP of sales who bought a tool and halfway implemented it. VP of marketing who did the same thing with their tool. Customer success is not in the CRM for some reason. They're in their own little world doing something else. So it's one, like, if you're coming in as a RevOps person to, so if you're coming in as a RevOps person right away, you come in and you're probably going to be a little overwhelmed in your first few months, right? A lot of the hard work of RevOps takes place in the first 3 to 6 months of your role, right? It's fixing a lot of the things that you come across, and you're kind of rebuilding what should be there. And you're going to find good things there. Somebody built something along the way, and there is good stuff there. Use it. You don't have to rewrite the Bible. It's got some good stuff in there, right? So you kind of use what you've got, make yourself and your time efficient, right? If something's working, focus on something that's not first. So you go fix all the problems, and then you get all your data cleared up and straightened away, so that you can come back and say, okay, now we have a data structure that allows us to analyze MQLs, analyze sales cycles, analyze lifetime value and upsells, and kind of hone in on little sections of improvement as well, right? So it's constant improvement. That's what RevOps brings in the long term, right? In the short term, it's right, we're going to build you a great foundation. In the long term, we're going to continue to improve on that foundation so that we can continue to bring more value to what we're doing as a company, right? Whether it's improving what marketing is doing to focus on the right types of leads. If it's, okay, hey, this sales cycle and this stage is having some weird issue in it where, we've got great conversion from stage to stage to stage, but all of a sudden in the middle here, everything just disappears, right? We lose everybody for some reason. Okay, so it's dive into that section, figure out what's going on. You improve that, you improve everything, right? So it's little things along the way that make up this entire revenue engine, right? So, if we use the engine analogy, it's, all right, spark plugs are important, but you can buy cheap ones or you can buy really expensive ones, right? You're probably going to start off with cheap ones or whatever came in the car when you bought it. But if you want to improve things, that small adjustment in the grand scheme of things can make a huge impact, right?
Yes.
So it's just every little thing that you can do in RevOps brings you just a little bit closer to, an F1 engine, right? Where it's just fine-tuned machine where the difference between first and last is, less than a quarter of a second, right? The difference between being the unicorn in SaaS and being bankrupt in SaaS is it's very small. There's not a lot of room to, kind of play around and spend your money on things that aren't working. So everything has to be super efficient, and I think that's what Revops brings. It is a really strong need to improve and be efficient across the board. And I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but it's kind of where I'm really passionate about Revops.
Yeah. Thanks, man. We see that. Yeah, great. So maybe, George wants to add something, or maybe address other topics.
No, I mean, let's discuss something else. If we look back, if you look at hindsight, we can see the evolution of revenue operations from the past several years. Before, let's say, it's been primarily about more tactical stuff. At some point, I think when it was the beginning of Revops as an industry, let's say, I don't know, more than 5-7 years ago, it was primarily about system administration. It was primarily about data management. Now, many people start, including us from what I see, start considering revenue operations more as a strategic function as well. And now I guess we are at a point where Revops is a good blend of strategy, tactics, operations. That is what makes a good Revops professional. Someone who understands strategy, someone who understands tactics and can apply those tactics. So just wanted to ask you, like, from your perspective, what do you see right now in contemporary modern Revops? What is the strategic part of the work? What is the tactical part of the work? The work of a Revops person, and how does it change when a company evolves, in its growth?
Yeah, maybe Nick or someone else.
I think that I think is the key thing, right? The role itself needs to be interpreted as never the right thing, right? There's never a perfect fit for a company. A company might need RevOps to be just a system admin. Then, in my opinion, it shouldn't be called RevOps because we're mixing up things. It's not the same. It's a branch of RevOps.
Yeah.
But the company needs something, and there's also a difference between what it needs and what it thinks it wants, right? And we need to also be clear that there might be variations of that across the way, and we also need to figure out what best fits for that time. And RevOps is different depending on who you ask, but there's always one thing that we need to be aligned, which is the fact that RevOps is trying to merge everybody into the same kind of bundle, right? We need to drive go-to-market efficiency and operations internally and externally. That doesn't change. Now, if that is through a system optimization, if that is through go-to-market and really figuring out if you're talking even to the right ICP, or even if you figured out your ICP in the first place, those are two very different things. They go hand in hand, but they have different applications in the day-to-day. And so we need to figure out what is the real importance within one of these criteria, and then really target that and talking to the people and really developing the idea as we go. Because confusion can grow pretty quickly from this.
Mm-hmm.
Have different interpretations and different companies requiring different things. But the more we talk about it and the more we kind of establish the ground zero that this is the way that it should be interpreted as, I think the rest doesn't really matter, right? It just doesn't matter that, it's this or that. It doesn't. We're all trying to do go-to-market efficiency and operations. Essentially.
I just want to maybe add a few things, and I 100% agree with this. I think sometimes we get too, let's say, boiled down in the definition of what RevOps is and what the ideal structure should be, that we actually forget about the main mission, which is just to drive efficiency, right? And like, I worked in companies where, let's say, marketing ops was not part of RevOps. It was, let's say, and it was great. Like it was not an issue, right? But like it's, and you will have variations because every company is different, right? So let's say when you are, and like the stage of the company matters a lot. So for example, after Series A, when you're looking for go-to-market fit, your go-to-market motion might change, right? And in terms of at that stage, it's very good to have generalists in your team. Like DevOps should be like a more of a generalist role, can like apply themselves to wherever is the most their need, right? So maybe that starts with the data infrastructure, then the process improvement, making sure the handoffs are right between different teams. And yeah, so in terms of, I think that's the only thing I would want to add is like it would look different in different organizations, and we should not be too married to this idea of this is the ideal structure of RevOps, and that's take it or leave it, right? So
I will disagree with you here, Timur.
all right, let's do it.
No, I think it's just the beauty of the SaaS business. Of course, revenue operations can be applied to other business models, but we mostly speak about SaaS. So the beauty here is that you can achieve something that is not so easy achievable in other business model, and that's standardization. We have great friends like Stephen Morel, for example, from Jax, who is going to speak tomorrow. He has founded, because he's German, he has founded the Open SaaS Institute, which is an open source collaboration between SaaS experts that, because Germans, they like to work on standards. If you have the ICO standard for something, why you don't have the SaaS standard for something? And I think from my perspective, the future leaders, and that was also my maybe last question to you, is when you want to found a SaaS company in the future, I think today we are living still, but not anymore so drastically, in this romance of I'm dreaming to be a unicorn founder, like a company. It's very sexy to be a startup founder, doing some stuff, selling some products, AI driven, blah, blah, whatever. And like behind this, there is no real knowledge. And if we compare the business model to a Swiss watchmaker in a very small village in Switzerland, you're not going to maybe see the similarities between the other village watchmaker and for Swiss watches, maybe the tools, but they're totally different businesses. There is a romance there is history. And here you just need to apply to some rules. And those rules are, we need at least to think about unifying the go-to-market engine, building the right RevOps structure, and really unifying or uniting, the expertise of all the people that are working in this industry and saying, okay, that's the best scenario normally for a SaaS company. I don't give a whatever if you are selling a product for, like creative AI or video making or anything else, if it's a product-led growth or something else, that's the core. And if you're building an engine or a car, this is the at least thing that you need to have in your company. Well, yes, as Ben mentioned, you can start with Chinese parts and then invest in more expensive Swiss parts. Or if you are, a person that thinks strategically, maybe in the future, then you can invest really in a good, parts of the engine, and then expect more quick growth, more sustainable growth, or whatever in the near future. So I think my last comment would be, and I will urge also the people that are watching to ask questions maybe or to comment on everything that we said today, is I think from it's getting hard to be a founder of a SaaS company, and we need to send that message. It's not an easy business from one hand, because you need to have the knowledge about what we're speaking today. And I think it's a very easy transition if you trust this model and if you just accept to some extent, I don't know how it can happen, but that's my question to you. Just to accept that if you start building a company or growing a company, that's the way it goes. This is the way how we are actually, having the subtitle of our conference. So anyone, sharing my thoughts here or maybe disagreeing with me? Timur, do you want to disagree with me?
I think the only thing I would add is I agree with like the general sentiment. We need standardization, but where it gets hard is like we're not building software here. Like RevOps and go-to-market is a very people's driven, and it's really driven by people and the talent.
Yeah.
And in terms of like in search for this perfect candidate or this perfect team, we should not, let's say, compromise on what we can achieve in the short terms, and that might not be the ideal structure that we want on
Yeah.
paper. So we need to, let's say, place our bets and like find the structure that works for that organization.
Yeah,
That's
totally
that,
agree.
yeah.
Very people-driven function, and this is something that we want to send as well on people, because as a message to our attendees, it's not only about technologies, KPIs, whatever. It's about the people behind it. So yes, the human element is still there, and as our keynote speaker, the AI said, like there will be some kind of percentage of AI adoption, but still, strategically, visionary, people are going to be, on the top of the chain when we speak about business development, especially also in the SaaS business. Guys, any kind of roundup thoughts, last wishes, or something else? Ariana. Lovely, Ariana. You can maybe we started with you. Maybe we can start ending with you.
Sure. Yeah, I think just with the amount of times we've kind of challenged each other here, I think it's such a good sign of how much RevOps is evolving and where do we see it going. The kind of the expertise of RevOps, how we see that shaping up. Finding the balance between, needle moving things. Do we use roadmaps? How do we goal set? How do we prove value, show impact? All these are very interesting. And, whether or not we go with a prescriptive methodology of standardization like the big giant industries, or whether we stay agile and flexible and tailored. So in this sense, I have to say I back you up, Timur, in this specific topic. So that's 1 and 1. But I think they're fantastic conversations for us to be having in any regard.
Thank you, Rihanna. Timur?
No, I think I agree. And so I think like my last few words would be that, thank you so much for setting this all together. I think we learned a lot from each other. And I think it's like the challenging each other part, I think is very important. And I think that is something that we should, as RevOps people, always do, like challenge business objective, challenge the leaders that we work with. The other thing which I think I learned over a period of time, or like realized recently with how important this is like the ability to actually work with reps on a personal level, and not being as let's say the process enforcer, but rather working with them, right? So, and I think for me, like coming back to the point of why it's important to be like rep centric and being so, let's say, people driven. I think that's what makes good RevOps is that element. And like I know you want to replace that with AI one day. I think that's the thing that we wish we would hold on to.
Yeah.
And that
Hopefully not.
No, guys, I'm on the human side still, but don't piss me off, please. Nick?
Yeah, I think the more we talk, the better it is, right? I think it's the concept of RevOps is not new. It's been there. It's just the name that is new. And I think the more we talk and the more we iron out questions, ways of doing things, and always knowing that each person has their own particular way of looking at things and trying different things, the goal needs to be the same, right? Regardless. And the more we put that into practice, talk about it, and hash it out, the better. I think there's only good things to learn from that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I really appreciated that. Ben?
Yeah, I really enjoyed joining these kind of conversations with some great experts here and people who have experienced probably the highs and very low lows of RevOps. And it's as Timur said, kind of bringing all these ideas together is a great way for us to sharpen our skills, kind of see things from different perspectives. And I think that's something that RevOps as a whole should embrace, right? We're in marketing, we're in sales, we're in customer success, we're in product, we're doing all these different things, we're in finance. And many of us come from different backgrounds, right? I'm kind of a event operations, then sales operations, Some of us in RevOps come from marketing and the marketing operation side of things, and we all have different ways of having seen it done, right? And when you join a company, in the younger stages, and you are that one person or the team of one, it can be very easy to just kind of, all right, focus in on the way I've done things, focus on the way I've made it work in the past. But as you grow and you learn from others and you bring on team members and build your RevOps function, right, it's important to bring those different types of viewpoints so that you can drive great growth for a company, right? It's bringing my ideas, it's bringing the analyst ideas, it's bringing the marketing ideas, it's taking things from all different angles and bringing the best forward. It's a role where you need to eat your own ego sometimes, right? I can sit back and say, oh, I'm the best, I know how to do things the greatest. But when you do it and you do it wrong, sometimes you have to sit there and eat crow, right? It's just, oh, that didn't work. You have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with saying, all right, yeah, your idea is way better than mine. I'm going to help you implement it, right? It's taking the best of everything and putting it towards the company. And so you kind of have to put your own ego on the back seat a little bit sometimes and say, look, I'm here to make the company better. I'm here to make the selling experience better for my internal teammates. I'm here to make the customer experience better for them on the external side, right? Are they having a good buying experience? And so it's putting a lot of these things ahead of your own. All right, yeah, hey, look what I built. This is great. It's providing a service and a function to your team members, your customers, your CEO, your founders, and really, you really kind of give a lot in RevOps. And I think that's a really great part about it. If you have that kind of mindset.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, really, everyone. George, if you want to add a couple of words at the end for this first panel.
Yeah, maybe a few sentences. There's a reason why
A few sentences.
RevOps. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why RevOps roles have been among the most on-demand roles on the US market, where we see, the biggest boom in SaaS, let's say, and we have more scaling, fast scaling businesses there. And I think such kind of trend is gradually moving to Europe as well. Just it's important to have this kind of events, communities where really we speak about the power of RevOps in in go-to-market. And there are a lot of case studies already, a lot of companies that have adopted RevOps and have achieved a lot of very, very good things. But I think there aren't still a lot of places where you can hear, where you can see, where you can read about those results, and where you can really see something tangible that RevOps has helped to achieve. So yeah, that's my
That is really the good thing we can end with. It's tangible, even though it's a digital world. It's really, you can sense the transition, the transformation. You have the data that it can shows you, and also on the people end. And we're going to speak about that in the conference as well. In terms of change management, if you manage to align all your people under one goal and also KPIs, eventually they're feeling more happy in your company, because everybody's feeling secure that they're going in the same direction. There is no constant fight between marketing and sales, who is to blame for the bad results, and so on and so on. So I think technologies are here to help, and people are also here to help, but also to feel more better when it comes to the transformation that you're going to undergo with revenue operations. Thank you, guys. I think we really laid the foundation of everything that is going to be presented in the next hours, today and tomorrow. It's really important to say that, yes, as George mentioned, we're going to see real examples of how RevOps helped in different various aspects of the go-to-market architecture and engine. I just have a question for Nick, because Nick, you were also planned for the next session, but maybe you're not able to join, or just to know if. Sorry,
I'll be there.
You're there. Okay, great. So Ariana, Timur, Ben, thanks a lot. We have 1 minute, just a small pause, and then we're back with the next discussion around the go-to-market singularity blueprint that we're going to present along with George and Nick.
All right. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm back. Let me just show myself around here. So I hope everyone is hearing and listening. Yeah, what should I say? We had a great first panel discussion. Just to add George here. Oh, he's at it. Yeah, George, Nick. Hi, Nick.
Hey, guys.
Hey, man. Yeah, I think we just managed to touch upon lots of important things. And now what we want to present to you is collaborative work between people that you see on stage now, and also some of our other advisors in RevBrains, because maybe maybe not, but revenue operations is just part of a bigger picture, and this picture is actually the full journey of a company, from the point of moment that this company starts to realize that there are some things that needs to change in order to grow sustainably, to the moment that eventually everybody's dreaming about that, to reach this moment where you're actually thinking about other things, not just to building the go-to-market engine, but just to maybe constantly optimize it, and so on and so on. George, maybe to add a couple of intro words, or Nick, just before we start presenting.
Yeah, maybe to put some clarity around what we are going to present. Basically, in the past few months, we've been speaking with a lot of growth leaders, a lot of founders who've been taking care of the growth in their companies, and generally a lot of people that are in go-to-market. And as we've seen, there is a lot of interpretations of how growth or maybe efficient growth can be achieved. We've been thinking of how can we visualize, how can we make sure there is a model that can help people get a better orientation of what usually, from our experience, is the point where we can start, thinking about growth, laying some foundations, and how that changes over time as the company grows. So that's what you're going to basically, discuss.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I just want to give a heads up to Pavel Nikau and Marcus Benning, who are also, part of the contributors to the model. This is how the full picture looks like. We managed to nail down some of the very important things. Now I see here that my arrow is not moving, so I'm just going to do a very short addition of the presentation, while George, you can just speak with Nick for 2 minutes.
Right. Maybe at the beginning, if you Nick want to also add some of your impressions after, like by working, what were your thoughts on working, co-creating this model with us, and we can get it in a discussion mode.
I think above everything else is to make sure that everybody gets on the same page about what we're trying to do, right?
Yep.
I think creating this view to express what it is that and why operations, scalable operations, and go-to-market strategy is so important, and at what stage, also helps people to understand why they need it sooner rather than later, and
Right.
also why delaying that can have way more negative impact than initially thought, right? One of the things that we really need more nowadays but don't have is time. And time wasted is not only revenue that we could have gotten, but also efficiency going down the drain for no reason, right? And putting everything into a standardized process allows people to gain more time to do other things.
Right.
So I think that's the central piece here.
Exactly. And it's interesting to note that although we, of course, recommend, as mentioned in the previous session, Revops to be implemented at as early stage of the company as possible, or at least, we know that usually Series A, Series B is the time when most companies implement revenue operations. Some do it earlier, but there are a lot of companies that are very mature, and those incumbent companies that are implementing revenue operations at a much later stage in their development, like companies with, let's say, 400, 500 people, if you even worked with such companies, are undergoing this kind of transformation where they become Revops enabled, or as we like to say, Revops compliant. And it's interesting to see what are the differences and what are the advantages and disadvantages of implementing Revops at a more early stage, or compared to implementing Revops when you are really a grown, mature company. Of course, the later is a little bit more challenging because that requires changing a lot of people, changing the habits of a lot of people. Whereas if you start growing the Revops function, the Revops mindset as the company is growing, this becomes something very natural. That's why this is the way we are recommending. But still, we need to look at both scenarios, both situations, because the world, contains both kinds of companies, a lot of both kinds of companies, and we have a solution, I think, for those two scenarios.
Thank you, guys. I managed to, recover this small issue and glitch because we have a GIF. A GIF image that actually this is, arrow that you see is moving and the wheel at the end is circling, but that's something that you're going to see in the files and presentations that we're going to send you afterwards. So as you can see here, we are dividing the blueprint, and we call it a blueprint for a reason, because it's not a model, it's a pathway, it's a map that shows you actually how things are moving to the right direction. And we have those 4 different phases that are divided into activation, inflection point, performance maximization, and then entering singularity. That's the moment where actually everybody's dreaming of. So entering singularity would mean something that we're going to discuss on a later stage. But let's start with the activation phase. George, maybe you can add a couple of words here. That's the moment, actually, where what I mentioned previously, the moment of realization that something is going on here.
Yeah, but I would be happy, Ivan, in fact, if we spent a little bit more time also on the whole model, to explain some main moments from it, and then we can deep dive into things.
Yeah, perfect.
Basically, as you mentioned, 4 major parts, but where did we start basically when we were creating that model, and what was the problem which we were seeing? By working with many of our customers, and by speaking with a lot of growth and Revops leaders, we've identified that some people are looking at RevOps as merely, adding a few more people to their go-to-market structure. Others were thinking about really redesigning their operations so that, let's say, their sales are spending really more time selling. Others were thinking about it in a different way. Yes, all of those, things, if they are improved, they can lead to some, success for the company. The thing is, we wanted to show what happens if we implement every single part of what RevOps is all about. And that's what we have combined here. So usually what we see when a company doesn't have, RevOps or doesn't have still the mindset, usually there are a lot of, let's say, issues around go-to-market effort sometimes being disjointed. And let's say if in early stage companies, you have board meetings, you have, such occasions when you need to present some good quality data, basically you're experiencing some hardships. There are difficulties for you to have the right data. Maybe you have a lot of data, but you don't have it well structured and so on. This is a period of time when really you start thinking there is a problem, and that's what the activation stage is about. Whereas the other stages is what we've seen companies are going through in terms of basically how RevOps really is, or RevOps projects are initiated in the company. What are the stages that usually they go through, like the diagnosis, design, and implementation, and then this curve that we see, the upwards curve from the performance maximization, basically how we see the growth at the company usually improves. But also what we want to say is that this never stops. Like RevOps enablement, RevOps implementation never stops, because once the company grows, and as the company grows, the RevOps needs, as every other company needs, is also on the increase.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Nick, if you want to add something, George, maybe just to I think the two first stages are really really important when it comes to what we do and our work. Maybe just to discuss here on the end of the realization, and then how we actually initiate this transformation.
Yeah, I think one of the good things that we can kind of get from the model and from the blueprint is that, as you all noticed, the line isn't straight across the board. It goes upwards, but it's not straight, because there is no way in which we can do things without having to sacrifice at any given point in time some level of efficiency or inefficiency. So sometimes the concept of having to break things to then put things together in a better way is what that is, right? That usually comes into the inflection point where you get those sparks. But essentially, if you take a step back, which is, I think, the whole point of RevOps, is to look at the bigger picture, you're going to see an upwards trend. It's like the stock. If you take a stock option and just look at a day and there's a massive decline, you realize that, oh my God, I made a massive mistake. But if you then zoom out and take like a year's picture view, then you're going to see that that's just a small little line downwards in a massive line upwards, right? And that is the whole point.
Yeah, totally agree. George?
You're
muted.
Yeah, sorry. Just wondering, as we are, showing every specific stage, whether people can get the full idea of where we are going. Maybe, people can write in comments if we need to refer to the bigger moment, like to the bigger blueprints with all the stages. But basically, you can see right now the moment of activation, where when you if we look at the case with companies that are now starting to scale or are on their growth journey, as mentioned, very often what we see as manifestation in terms of problems, difficulties, is let's say companies cannot really answer well or in enough good quality some questions, some queries that their board is asking. Sometimes those early leaders, marketing, sales leaders, sometimes they work by themselves, but do not really do shared planning, do not do, let's say, shared strategy. And at some point, you start growing your team, you start, acquiring, more and more people start to come to your team as you're growing the go-to-market organization, but your inability, your ability to scale is hindered. It's not the full potential. This is when really this moment of activation starts to happen.
Realization. You realize,
because you realize you cannot continue this way if you want to achieve your growth goals, let's say.
And let's just be clear, even if you're a big company, right? Even though RevOps, the concept of RevOps is really hard to implement in large organizations, we're still going to touch base on the pros and cons of each. But even if you're at a big company, it's not because you got that way that you figured it all out, right? You still have things that you can potentially optimize and make it better, in which you can just take an element from a blueprint like this and apply and realize you didn't have that before and still use it, and vice versa, obviously, depending on the size of the company, of course. But essentially, the singularity is critical here because it's never an end point. You never finish it. You eventually always have something to improve, make it better or different.
Exactly. So from my perspective, when we speak about we can really enrich the blueprint with the help of our experts and clients and everyone else that wants to collaborate and contribute on that. But when we actually, guys, and I just want to ask your opinion, when we see this line and we see all these different moments of the evolution or revolution, how we call it, it's actually from the personal perspective, it's also a journey. And I just want to once again focus on the first phase and just ask you about what is happening in the head of the decision makers to move to the second point. It's this very important transition point where we initiate the transformation. What does RevOps transformation initiation mean, and what happens in this exactly moment, or in the mind of a business owner, so that he goes further?
I think the primary reason is they require they spot a specific issue they have, and then they want to solve that specific issue.
Yeah.
Be that a CRM issue, a system issue, or a super technical issue, or a more kind of company-wide thing that they need to figure out how to do. For example, a sales to CS handoff properly. Never done it before, depending on first level VP of sales, first level CRO, whatever. Doesn't matter. But it usually comes from a specific pain point that the person needs or kind of had that requires specific attention. And then you go into asking people across the board from the same area to figure out, well, actually, to solve that specific problem, you need this specific skill set. It usually starts super low around skill sets, around the tactical execution of things, to then grow into, oh, actually, so all of this rolls up into RevOps. And this is what RevOps is. And that's the point when you start figuring out what you need to be able to get to that point. But that's still very raw. And just to be clear, this is very raw, and to the point where they just know that this might be the area that fixes that problem, not the broader picture of what it actually can do.
Yeah. George?
Yeah, exactly. And what I wanted to say, basically, here is where the place of the good leader can be, seen. Usually, good growth, a good revenue leader is the one who very quickly realizes, the pain points that their team is experiencing and moves from this phase to the other one, which is really taking some action. And as Nick mentioned, basically problems can be manifested as something very specific. Let's say the churn rate is, being very high, or let's say our sales process is increasingly increasing with time. Let's say it's very long, okay, and a lot of other such cases. But you need also to look at the root causes of the situation and really
Yes.
what's causing those, to understand, the full where the problem comes from.
Exactly. So I think it's really good touching upon the topic that we spoke in the previous panel discussion. So it's about the leadership, and that is why I really want to highlight and when we speak about revenue operation, it's not a panacea that just someone installs in the company and it works. It takes lots of leadership and the right mindset to do that. That is why here, in the first activation phase, we can speak about lots of niche problems, and how you can see here, we have two main highlights when we speak about the realization motivation moment. So lack of shared understanding in revenue strategy and planning. And then we have also unanswered board inquiries about growth projections, which is also something important based on the bad data that you're gathering because of not unified systems or data governance standards or whatever. So I think this is the moment, and we need just to be clear here that there is educated leaders that eventually end up learning about that. Oh, everything that I have is a problem, or those 3 specific problems are actually solvable under the umbrella of Revops. Okay, it's the bigger picture. I need to have a longer journey, but it's the right journey. And then when you realize this, then the transformation starts by, on the one hand, working with external experts, like the expensive consultants. I don't know them. I don't know who is these guys or people, or hiring people within your company that needs to fix things and going to that direction. But then you initiate that, and then you move to the next phase, which is the foundation building. So here starts as you mentioned here, the line starts to be more dynamic. Why is that, and how is this phase really important here for the whole journey, George?
Yeah, and if we get back here to the initial problems that growth leaders are experiencing, what we suggest here basically is, okay, if this is a problem that has appeared today, but tomorrow likely you're going to have another problem if you don't look at things more holistically. And that's why we say, in order to build the foundations of a good, predictable, efficient go-to-market engine, you need to build something that we have called blueprint. Basically, let's analyze what's working and what's not working in general in your go-to-market so far. Let's figure out what are the things which your sales, marketing, success people are not doing in the most optimal way. Let's see how Revops can improve those things, and basically what is exactly the place of Revops in your organization. Is it going to help you do headcount planning better? Is it going to help you do forecasting better? Is it going to, first of all, help you calculate your metrics better, and so on, but in a more streamlined way, in a more streamlined fashion, so that really people see that it's not a problem that we solve and it's a one and done thing, but it's a whole set of initiatives that we need to work on in order to make sure those problems do not repeat in the future, let's say.
Yeah. I think, as you can see here, we have divided this Revops foundation building phase into 3 sub-stages. The diagnosis of the current go-to-market performance, then the Revops blueprint design, and the implementation. Maybe to touch upon the different sub-stages just with a couple of words, how this happens, from our perspective, because actually what we are also picturing here is the way that we work, or the way that our colleagues in companies should or are working. So maybe, Nick, maybe you can, touch upon the diagnosis topic, or if George wants to add.
Yeah, I think the diagnosis is probably the most important piece, because it really allows you to take a step back. And I think the step back here is something that we need to iterate more and more, because that is what differentiates you going after a tactical solution to a specific problem versus taking a step back and looking at the root cause of the problem and trying to fix the whole thing, right? And obviously, yeah, sometimes you change one specific element of your operations and it saves time and it helps that specific side of things, but it doesn't actually add on to the bigger picture, right? Into the bigger organization. The interactions within the different revenue teams, for example, is a perfect one. Collecting, specific technical requirements from customers earlier on the deal cycle, so that when you get to the customer success side of things, they don't have to keep re-asking the same questions and feel like a disjointed process. These are all things that are practical and tactical examples of time saved and an efficient process that just make feel like everything is moving seamlessly, right? And you can do that directly from the go-to-market diagnosis. You really understand not only internally how the company works, but also what are they externally trying to project? Who are they going after? How are they going after their customers? And more often than not, if you do this properly, you'll identify that sometimes you're doing it wrong, and you might not even be looking at the right people, right, at the right time, and sending the right messaging, so on and so forth. So that is by far the most crucial piece. If you do that right, the rest will potentially fit in better. But if you do that wrong, it's a make and break situation.
Yes. It's like going to a doctor and, like he observing you and prescribing the right recipe, right?
Correct.
George, we are doing this in RevBrains a lot for our clients, and like as Nick mentioned, the very essence and important phase, so that we know what to prescribe. What are the good elements here? What are the from your experience, milestones that everybody within his company needs to do when starting this, going to this stage, sub-stage?
Right. Of course, by the way, when we start working with our customers, many of them, I would say almost all of them, after a few weeks of working, heavily on a Revops project, they really realize it's, as mentioned, not the problem they have come up with that they need to solve, but that they need to think holistically about their go-to-market architecture and operations. And that's where we start basically the design of the Revops blueprint. And that's why here you can see a little bit of, let's say, lifting up this curve, because this is where everybody gets excited. They see, the new way of doing things. They see for now, in theory, how their problems are going to be solved. And it's maybe the first exciting moment that
honeymoon
we
phase.
See. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. That we see people, our customers are experiencing. And of course, a blueprint. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I wanted to say that, of course, a blueprint is very different when you go from company to company. For one company, it can be around what are your, first, let's say, the goals that as a Revops department you need to achieve in the next, let's say, few months, your milestones that you need to hit. For others, it can be, of course, how the organizational structure is going to be restructured. There are a lot of things. For others, it's, let's say, how are you going to make sure your journey model or your ICP model is shared between marketing, sales, and success. It's not just owned by marketing. It's a lot of things that we combine, like out of a list of, let's say, 56 different things we combine and we deliver to the customers. Several that are big.
And I'm just moving to the next important slide here, because I think now it's time to speak about it. Everybody, okay, we speak about diagnosis, we speak about blueprints, but what are the elements of revenue operations and how are actually they're interconnected? So maybe just, George, Nick, a couple of words here on the importance of each layer. I just need to say that they are not ranked in terms of importance. They're equally important. It's just more visual if you're, number it. So yeah, from that perspective.
Yeah, I think given they're not, it's impossible to actually rank these. These need to happen in parallel to each other. But if I had to pick, and that's usually what happens in our role, right? We have to deal with biases and adversities and all that. So we have to choose from an unselectable kind of list. But shared go-to-market planning is, I think, what drives the rest. If I had to pick, right? As long as everybody's on the same page and everybody understands that whatever you do here in this specific area benefits someone else way down the line. So don't keep asking me, oh, why do I have to do this? It's not part of my job. That is when you start really moving towards that singularity approach, right? And more often than not, if we're just obviously talking Series A to Series C, D, the companies, they implement the honeymoon RevOps and then go into the honeymoon phase. And what happens is they focus a lot of the efforts on making sure that that person is, ready and set up for success, as long as they're doing that by themselves. And that is a big mistake. RevOps is not an individual contributor, right? It's a business partner that requires a significant support and resources to actually deploy the vision, right? And sure, if you have a leader, that person might do the same exact thing. It will just take longer, which then defeats the purpose of RevOps in the first place. And if there's a team behind him, then that can be sped up significantly, right? So it's also bringing that idea that the shared go-to-market planning is important, but in order to actually build the foundation, you require investments, you require resources, and you're required to really sponsor the role. And that is what drives it forward.
Right. Yeah, agree with Nick on the one hand around shared go-to-market planning, but maybe we can start with it. On the other hand, maybe first we need to make sure leaders understand strategy the same way and have the same vision for how the company should be grown from, let's say, now on. So, a lot of different interpretations on where we need to start with, and maybe that needs to be more of a circle instead of just, a list of things. But what we wanted to show...
It is, George, on the end.
Yeah.
There is a slide about that.
Right, exactly. But what we also wanted to show with those 7 layers of RevOps, basically, yes, we are starting to do some RevOps, but people think, what is the tangible thing that we can really, touch and see the change that you are trying to implement? And basically, those 7 layers of revenue operations, they're serving to some extent as that, really giving the direction of where the main changes are happening, changing on the one hand, the visionary, like the way leaders are seeing the company in terms of alignment, changing the way they are doing strategy. No more, having 3 separate strategies in terms of one for marketing, one for sales, one for success, but having on the one hand one shared file for the most important things, and then breaking this, file down to, let's say, the operations which need to be executed by every specific department, and then going to, let's say, the last one, which is integrated revenue enablement principles, which we say it's not about just sales enablement anymore. We need to include equally marketing, success enablement. That's why we call it revenue enablement. Basically, everybody to be equipped with everything necessary, all the templates, all the models, so everybody feels equally responsible for the end result, which is revenue and reaching our goals.
Yeah, what you think about it, 7 being the end, you can put that as the foundation for everything, right? Because I think, in my opinion, when you have solid documentation and when you have solid ways of structuring things, you build that foundation for anybody else coming into the role or coming into the company, but you also allow the role to outlast you. That is, I think, the end goal, right? We need to always make sure that people are equipped with the tools they need to succeed. And documentation is super underrated, and people don't really give the importance it should. And that is foundational for people to self-serve and to just be more independent.
Right,
Yes.
right. Agree. And maybe just to point out, as we're saying historically, and maybe even right now in 2023, as still we have those associations, RevOps being equal to system admins, we can see very clearly here that basically, if we look at where it is on 6th, interconnected go-to-market systems, basically the systems part has its vital part, but it's just 1 out of 7 pieces that we need to very carefully look at to make sure everything's in good shape.
Okay, so what we did so far, and I'm just going back to the full picture once again. We managed to dissect to some extent the journey that goes from the moment that you start realizing something needs to be done, and then having the balls to initiate this transformation, and then going into the transformation phase where there is work to be done. And something very important, we spoke about the 7 layers, which I think from the perspective of the leaders within the company and the people that are going to undergo this transformation, this is the moment where you actually get other perspective for your business engine performance, or is actually your business performance at all. So what we have here is something that needs to be impregnated, tattooed on the business leaders' hearts. Like this is the moment where you say, okay, guys, from now on, there will be those 7 layers that we are going to try always to, touch upon, see how they're performing, how they're interconnected, and, constantly prove them or improve them. That's the whole point. So I think this is the very important moment where you need to be aware that from this moment on, everything changes within your company. It's not only about twisting some stuff or just making more revenue. It's about the mentality of the people, and I think this is one of the most difficult things to achieve when it comes to the transformation phase initiation. And now we enter the 3rd phase, where if everything is set right, we see this kind of performance maximization, or we see the curve starting to grow and to go up. Any comments here, George, maybe to start?
Yeah, basically, if we look at the whole model we have divided, I think the journey, this part of the journey where people start seeing the real benefits, into 2 parts. The first part, which is still a little bit fragile, which we say go-to-market acceleration, and then the second part, which is really the go-to-market excellence. But the go-to-market acceleration part really is this, piece of the journey where some quick wins, let's say, from all those efforts can be really seen. And if you go now to the slide where we are explaining, where we are giving more details on that, basically, here we can see that usually at that stage, if everything's done all right, we see improved communication between the major go-to-market players. Also, very often, as a result of your go-to-market team using the same data and having access to all the data, usually the experience, the customer experience is better. It is improved because no more asking the same questions, let's say, and of course that strengthens customer trust and satisfaction. The thing is that at that point, although technically transformation is done, the cultural shift where you where everybody is aligned with the new mentality, the new methodology is still not there, because those things take more time. And a good growth leader needs to be very careful with that. How do we make sure that those kind of quick wins stick for the future, and how do we make sure that all those best practices that we have implemented continue to be implemented in the next phases of our business journey, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. And then the acceleration is moved to the go-to-market excellences. I see here mistakes in my presentation. There is the go-to-market acceleration phase still, but we're speaking about the go-to-market excellence. Nick, maybe here you can join, or George.
Yeah, I mean, this part is more around finding your fit within your own go-to-market and your own product market fit, and making sure that your motion and your rhythm is actually there, right? It's taking whatever you've done and starting to create that or perfecting on it. Again, that's always going to be a continuous movement, but essentially what you're trying to do is making sure that you're building the foundation for repeatable motions to start. Think of it as the oiling of the engine, right? You're starting to put that oiling so that things start to move and fall into place, so that you are prepared to then go more into full rotation and the full motion of the wheel that we're going to discuss in the next slides.
Yes, George.
Yeah, I think maybe we can go to the next one, so we can pass through those phases and then have a discussion again on the whole model. Ivan, if you can go to the other slide now. Oh, sorry, maybe it's the previous one then. Yeah, continuous go-to-market evolution. Basically, this is all about, okay, we have all the technical requirements around, good contemporary go-to-market operations established. Then we also have the culture, which is instilled. So both, most important ingredients are there. On the one hand, as mentioned, culture is there, the Revops culture is there. On the other hand, the setup is there, the Revops setup is there. So it's all about, okay, we've had this journey for the past several months. How do we make sure this is sustained? How do we make sure in 2 years' time from now, really Revops continues to drive, this efficient growth, to drive, good, streamlined process? How do we make sure that as the company grows, really Revops is there to scale, with the company? And that's really what this continuous go-to-market evolution is about. And again, here, the role of the growth leader is crucial, making sure that people, because usually you have some champions that are going to like a lot the new model, but you also have some people that are, let's say, more resistant, more reluctant, want to get back to some previous stages of, working. A good, revenue leader. Needs to establish this discipline and make sure that people really understand what are the benefits that this kind of structure model brings to the company.
Yeah, totally agree. And then we enter singularity, or at least that's the way that we see it. And I think here it's also maybe the biggest correlation when we speak about AI. I think in the future is, the moment will come where AI will help South businesses be more standardized. And that's the way that you actually can achieve perpetual growth. But this stage is the moment where we actually start looping in all the things that you did so far, constantly, continuously. I'm moving to our go-to-market infinity loop flywheel, and you can see here actually the 7 layers of Revops are the outer circle. And the inner circle are the 4 phases, where actually this is the backbone of our work at RevBrains. We always go through all those 4 phases when we work with clients with different issues or problems or challenges, or just they want to undergo full Revops transformation. So we diagnose, design, implement, and then continuously transform. So our message here is that when you enter this stage, or hopefully there is a period of time in the future you're entering this stage, you need to apply all those 4 stages or 4 phases into each of the 7 layers. So constantly diagnosing, designing, and implementing new things, transforming the planning layer or transforming the operations layer. So that's the idea of the last phase. George, if I miss something here, maybe you can,
No, George, just before you go in, the only thing that I think is interesting for us to be very clear is that this model doesn't imply that we would never kind of open it up again to do iterations and change a few things, because strategy might change, planning might need to change to accommodate new leadership or to accommodate different kind of perspectives or different markets that you go into. Data is never going to be perfect, so we're also going to need to iterate on that. So it's the idea to get into that motion that we're talking about, rather than just always saying that this is going to be something that is going to be super fixed and immutable, right? That's not the case, just to be clear.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, I agree with what Nick said, and maybe as a conclusion here, you see that although the introduction of revenue operations to your business sometimes might seem like, or at least at the beginning might seem like a linear process, just a few steps that you need to go through, although some of those steps are very, like require a lot of efforts. At the beginning, this really goes into more of a circular model where you are always looking for what can be improved, meaning you're analyzing the situation and then directly you are iteratively implementing it. So that's what we call really the infinity loop flywheel, which never ends basically, but with every time this flywheel moves, your operations, your go-to-market engine looks better, more improved, which is the goal of everything.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's something that we, by the way, you can find the go-to-market singularity blueprint on our website. Here is, also quite nice visualized. There is more information to each of the phases. And of course, we lay out the 7 layers and the go-to-market infinity loop. You're going to be able to download this in a more interactive way very soon, but we're still not there yet. Okay, guys. So speaking about the whole journey, and we just want to say here that this is the foundation. The blueprint is, the foundational work from where we can start chopping out things and speaking very specifically to each of the phases and the stages. But really, what is your, from the perspective of working with clients already and people and in companies, what is your general advice, if there is anything like a general advice? And just once again to show this, we haven't highlighted this here, but as you can see, and I'm pointing out with my mouse pointer, but you don't see it, but in the performance maximization phase, we call it a Revops-led revolution or evolution.
Yep.
So those are the 2 different scenarios. And when we started building the blueprint, there was a discussion between, among us, shall we actually create 2 lines? Because there may be 2 different journeys in terms of, is this company adopting Revops from the very beginning, or it's actually something that has been, they want to transform this, adopt it in the scaling phase or somewhere else. So I think, what is your general advice when we speak about people going in this Revops transformation initiation phase? What we can say to them, guys, now is the time, or what is the right message?
I think essentially what we need to always consider is that, in my opinion, there's never too soon to start, right? The sooner you start, the better planned you can be. And sure, it can look different depending on the company, depending on the person who's looking for it, and even the stage that you're at. But scalability is never too much. You never can never be too cautious about building something to outlast everything that you've done, right, and leave something behind that actually can just work by itself. So when I hear a lot of people saying, yeah, Revops is great, I know what it is, but I think it's too soon for us, and I get it from a budgeting perspective. I get it, and it's true, right? Sometimes people have this barrier which is the budget, There are multiple alternatives out there nowadays, from consultants to advisors, on how to actually do that without breaking the bank, essentially. But given that we're talking to founders, right, most of the time the companies are their babies, right, and they treat it as such. So we also don't want to have or see that derail. You wouldn't as a founder. So the sooner the better. That is always my advice across the board. And no matter which point would, fit best to your moment, be the 7 layers, if you figured out 1 or 2 or 5, it doesn't matter. There's always something better to do, and there's always something that you haven't considered that RevOps can bring to the table.
Yeah.
Yes, or there is the other scenario where, on the one hand, a company might say it's too early for us, but on the other hand, we have had multiple times the other kind of experience where the company's like grown a lot already without implementing any kind of more holistic, revenue operations, and they say, okay, but it's like we are like such a big team. There is a lot of processes that are already, built, hard-coded more or less in our organization. It will take a lot for those to be changed. And yes, their change management efforts might be heavier, but still we see on the curve that at one point, and it's not, a lot of time, this usually pays off.
Exactly. And that's the thing. The sooner you start, regardless of your size, the sooner you start, the quicker you're going to be able to do it, right? One of the biggest advantages of the large companies is that they already have a team. They already have CS ops, they already have sales ops, they already have marketing operations. So as much as getting everybody under the same roof can be tough, you already have the first level or the first foundation built. So you don't even have to overcome that, right? You just have to start aligning the visions and slowly doing that. And if everybody's on board, as in leadership, is ready to put politics aside, put ego aside, and put all those things aside, there's really nothing stopping it from, actually growing and evolving.
Exactly. And I'm really happy that the next person who is going to speak today is exactly Jacob, because the overall message that we're trying to send here is that I think in SaaS, and George started with this on our previous panel, is a science. Is a science about emotions, but it's a science also about models, about data, about tangible, real statistics. Jaco is going to speak about revenue architecture models, and I think this is the backbone when we speak about the engine itself. And the way that currently the industry behaves is maybe, like we have lots of people in the SaaS world that, and it's just a normal scenario when you think about each and every other company that is created. The people that are founding the company, they're not marketing or sales people or operations people, right? No, they're more of a product people. They're people that, they know what they want to create, and they have the passion about that. So they have some kind of identified some kind of a problem, and they want to create it. So I think that's the problem behind the mentality is, like in every business, when you start by having the passion of creating something, then all the complexity around how I make this thing successful and useful to each and every person on the planet is starting to, come in waves, and it's really hard to, take it and make decisions based on that. So what is, companies like Winning by Design, like leaders like Winning by Design in terms of, architecture, building models, maps, those are the, the visionaries that they have the academical edge of our industry. And like it or not, business founders, business leaders, they need to start, learning. I wanted to say shit, but things. And they need to dive deeper into the, the essence of their business, which is not the product in reality. If you create the perfect engine, then you, of course, you can put a person to drive the car, but it depends on the person how actually you're going to drive the car, better or worse, but it's actually will be a fast car no matter what. So I think here the moment is really to say that if you want to create successful SaaS business, you need to think about educating yourself about the essence of the engine, which is building the RevOps foundation, the revenue architecture, everything else around that. And this needs to go alongside your dreams about the product and how you're going to develop this product. And I think this is from me, if you ask me when to start, you need to start first with this mentality and then think about starting the business. It's not about, oh, let's see if this product is going to have a market fit. Maybe this not, but the other will is going to have. You are an inventor. You're going to invent something else. But if you don't have the tools, the right tools and the right models to bring this to the market, who cares about the greatness of your products or service? So I think that's the essence here. So my message would be, guys, if you are in a leadership role, if you're a founder of a business, you need to start thinking about that. Of course, if you're in this conference and watching, because that is the step. Maybe you are, you're here on the transformation realization phase, but actually, let's face it, you can be anywhere else and just be, curious about what else is currently in the industry. So thank you, guys. George, Nick, really thank you for the 2 hours that we spent together, and the other guys also. I think we managed to lay out some great thoughts for discussion or food for thought. But I will give a 1 minute pause time for each and everyone, and then we're back with our next amazing person that is going to hit the stage in just a minute.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
Am I back? Yes, I am back. Okay, guys. The next person doesn't need so much of introduction. It will be, like the very good ending of our first day. So I would love to invite my good dear friend Jacko. Hey, Jacko. Hey, you're muted.
Good afternoon, Ivan. How are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing great. We had a great couple of sessions so far today. Spoke about a lot of things, controversial or not. but yeah,
Oh,
we're
what was
here.
controversial? Tell me, what was the controversial part, folks? I am.
When to
it's 7
start
a.m.
with Revops.
Yeah, it's 7 a.m. So for me, it's a little early, so I haven't been able to catch up.
Yeah. Okay, great. How are you? How are you actually? How is the year so far for you? And for
It's
winning
been
with
one.
design?
It's been a year.
Yeah.
No, I think we're all. The best way to describe it is sometimes I feel like I'm an epidemiologist on January 2020. You know what's coming. You see it's happening. There's just no way stopping it. So you just see this entire thing envelop and go. We're sitting here on the sideline. We as Revops professionals sitting on kind of on the sideline. And part of what I will be talking about today, watching this whole develop.
Yes.
We can pretty much forecast what's going next. I can take you through step by step. This is what's going to happen, and then that is going to happen. And eventually, people will come to the conclusion that RevOps is where the solution lies. So but it takes a while, and I think we made major progress this year. But unfortunately, that goes to Hardix rather than to people listening full on with what we have to say as a group of specialists.
Yeah, great. Okay, I'm giving the floor to you. Really honored to have you among us here. So just do your thing, and then I'm going to be back to discuss a couple of things after your presentation.
First, and for all of you, please ask questions if you have, because then Ivan can put them in the end, and we can either, if I see something that is relevant, I will immediately pick it up and integrate it. Otherwise, Ivan may be able to take a note and say, Jaco, we had question X, Y, Z, and we'll come back to that, right? And so,
Perfect. Great.
We good?
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure and a treat, people, to be here. Like we just had the solar eclipse. Like I made it pink instead of the white, but that is where we're at today. We are looking to be RevOps. Okay, a lot to talk about, and I want to make sure that we recap where we left off. This was about June, I believe, that we last spoke. Like when I was on the session. And, a lot has happened since, but we need to go back in order to understand where we're at today, okay? And what you may recall is that I showed you something like this. This is called a stack, and the stack works the same way, like how stacks work. The bottom is the bottom, the top is the top, so we're going to work from the bottom to the top. At the bottom, what you see down here is the internet. The internet is an infrastructure. The internet as an infrastructure was designed as a distributed network. In other words, routers everywhere connected, and in case of an emergency, such as a war, something like that, an attack, packets would route itself through a highly distributed network and find its way to the source. That was the way it was DARPA designed it, okay? Then on top of that, we put a cloud infrastructure, which does the opposite, which case a highly centralized infrastructure, and that highly centralized infrastructure are what you know as data centers, right? And then on top of those data centers, we now load applications, and those applications we access for all of you have no longer here, or great tops or whatever form. In other words, you're born in the 1960s, 70s. Those software applications, we are now accessing that through terminals, which are computers and mobile phones and whatnot, okay? And then the last two parts are the recurring revenue model. Now I'm accessing and I'm paying my software with a fractional piece rather than a large upfront piece. So we're now accessing all the same software sitting on a centralized server. We're paying on a monthly fee. That creates a recurring revenue stream. And on top of that, we have the go-to-market model. Now, the reason I say why this is important, because we got to realize where the problem occurred. Like if we say, again, recap, where did the problem occur in 2020, end of 2021, 2022? It didn't happen on recurring. It didn't happen on any of these layers. All these layers worked phenomenally well. They all worked, right? I mean, the internet didn't crash. I mean, 1 billion extra people jumped on the internet overnight. Did the internet crash? Barely. I mean, every now and then, but not that much considering the increased load. Cloud infrastructure, yes. There's recording of 2 outages or something like that, but nothing massive. Applications work fantastically, right? Like the Zooms, the DocuSigns, all those tools worked fantastically. And recurring revenue gave us all access to it, okay? And so what you'll see, that recurring revenue, That caused the enormous growth that we had over the past years, right? And it caused what we nowadays call software is eating the world. That started in 2012. Okay, recap. Understand that this was the situation as we entered 2020, and then that thing up there, that one collapsed. The go-to-market model collapsed and causing us issues between 2021 and 22, and obviously we're still dealing with that, which we will earmark as the growth at all cost, right? So that's the point that I want to point out. I'm going to quickly jump out of here, and let me see if I can get there. Where am I going? Where are you going? There. And so now what we see on the other side, we see down here two lesser things talked about is that when we think about the cloud, we normally think about the infrastructure and so on, the centralized structure. What I often want to recommend is that, like every one of these parts, the creation of the internet, the creation of the clouds, software apps, and recurring revenue have all created an incredible amount of wealth in the world. That's what you see. So will in the near future, so will the GTM also create. Now, the point that I made, if you look at the top, all the way over there, you'll see go-to-market will be the protagonist of SaaS for the years to come. I said this starting in the year. So starting January, I said this, like I presented it to you about mid-year. Rest assured, I already saw the agenda, GTM, GTM consortium, GTM this, GTM that. There's GTM everywhere right now. GTM is the word. It's the buzzword. If we're talking about what's happening, it's GTM. If you're in a cocktail hour later on, or you guys meet each other over coffee, or it's loud, all you need to do is blah blah blah, GTM, blah blah blah, GTM, and you'll be good. Everybody goes like, man, smart person, knows everything. Just talk GTM. Okay. Last part of the recap, but an important part. This whole GTM problem is because of the following. Once a company goes beyond $10 million in revenue, you become a revenue factory. As many of you may have known, because as my European brethren, or global brethren, but a lot of you have European roots. I come from my family, part of my family had a strawberry farm and so on and so forth. And part of my family has a a paint distribution center, roof laying company, and so on and so forth. Anytime any of my brothers and sisters, and I got 7 of them, goes beyond a couple of $1 million, they're building a factory. And so too, one of our organizations are going beyond $10 million in revenue. We are running a factory. Okay. Now, last time, what I proved to what was the focus of last time's session was that we focused on that the revenue factory is driven by the exponential engine. I showed all the exponential graphs where it all comes from, and so you go like, okay, you got it. Now, I'm going to dive in, and this is the key. What I'm demonstrating next, where I'm going next, is the fundamental problem, the misunderstanding. Everything that we see down here is, around this area. Okay. First of all, as a factory, we have 3 outputs: create more productivity, more cars, more books, whatever the thing produces. Number 1. Number 2, lower the cost, make it cost efficient, right? Machinery, like we're going to put automation. And number 3, make sure that the quality stays stable. Those are the 3 things that we really want to work on, right? Quality, production, engines lowers the cost, and make sure that the outcome stays about right. That is, however, what I'm going to depict to you is that the growth at all cost kept us to stick in that maturity-wise, we stayed exactly in that scalability. That's where we stayed. We never moved out of that mode. We never went to cost efficiency, and we never went to durability. Well, that has changed. And I think that many of you, I depict down here one of the presentations that I picked up from this was the one from Bessemer. Like everybody, if I look at SaaStr, it's all about efficiency right now. Now I'm going to blow up this thing a little bit. This was all about efficiency. Fantastic presentation, by the way. Whatever I lead you with today, do watch this presentation. First of all, it was a fantastic presentation. This was Bessemer, SaaStr. I'm telling you, I was enjoying that. And one of the best presentations I've seen in a long while. What I'm about to say has nothing to do with what their perspective is or what Bessemer's perspective is. I have to tell you, from their perspective, this is quite fine. I'm just letting you know what the problem is that is going to come out of this. Okay, that's all I'm doing here today. Now look here, what we are seeing. We're seeing two lines. In this case, Bessemer and everybody else speaks about it. Says like, hey, look, we're headed the right way. Things are happening. And what they're referring at, that blue line, is the growth is declining. And they go like, okay, growth declining. Yeah, that is what it is. And then the yellow line indicates that free cash flow is increasing. And they are using this as in a venture capitalist, uses this as a perspective of, look, things are turning around. I'm looking at the chat. Can anybody tell me what's wrong with this picture if you're an operator? If you're a venture capitalist, this is a fantastic thing. But if you're an operator, what's your problem with this? Anyway, like I'm looking at the chat, like I'm seeing if anybody can like what is happening is the following. You're starting to run your factory based on profits. And what you hear, and I encourage you to listen to many of these SaaS conferences, to our today's conferences as well, and you always hear the same thing: growth and cost. Growth and cost. Right? Oh, we're going to generate more growth, or growth is going down. Oh, we need more funding. What people never talk about is quality. That one. People never talk about that. Never. You never hardly ever hear people talk about it. They go like, okay, we got to grow faster, right? We measure ourselves in growth. How many rounds that we have? How big are our rounds? How much revenue we have? And now we're shifting to cost, right? Like I said down here, we see this in that SaaS conference, one of them, right? Focus on efficiency. Focus. What could go wrong if I tell an organization, hey, you know what? You need to keep growing, because that's still the case, but you need to do it at lower and lower and lower cost. If you do that to a factory, you get what we see in China. We get lower cost production, and lower cost production leads to lower quality. It's a common output. That is about where we're headed next. We knew that the efficiency would come, but if we do not lock ourselves into the quality of the product, we don't have an idea about that, then we're going to get a problem. I'm going to dive into that further. But quality is down here the case, okay? So what has happened since? I'm going to show you a new chart, so that brings us to where we are today, right? Like, hey, like we had the SaaS conference a couple of weeks ago. We see that like lots of people are focused on cost and efficiency right now. We need to keep growing. You're going to hear net 40 is everywhere right now. Okay, make sure that you grow, but make sure that it's cost efficient. Okay, let me show you how customers have responded to that. Okay, so what you see down here is a chart that depicts a little bit of like the whole situation that we find ourselves in. Okay, and so I want you to take a close look at that first line, that line down there. That is when you look at public SaaS companies, the public 80 SaaS companies. We see that the cost of marketing and sales on averages against total revenues is on average about 40%, 44, 45%. Okay, that is if you divide all the cost of marketing and sales on a public statement, you can find that cost of marketing and sales. You divide it by the total revenue, you get that 40, 45%. We've spoken about this before. That is the line. Now, is it high? You can say it's high, but it is what it is. You'll also see how that fluctuates very small, even, right, with all the cost savings. Why? Because you're being held against like X billion dollars of revenue, right? Or in case of scale-ups, or a couple of $100 million of revenue, right? That's what that line is for you. Now, we also know, this is a big statement, that if we look at these are the public markets. If we look at the public markets and we compare those to the private markets, grown-ups and scale-ups, and we start to draw that all the way down to startups, that companies operate, whether it's a startup, a late-stage startup, a scale-up, or a grown-up, a public grown-up, they all operate the same. So if this is 40, 45% in public companies, you're not going to see, like suddenly that scale-ups are operating at 20%. That's not happening, okay? That is like, we all operate approximately, startups, scale-ups, and grown-ups all operate approximately around that same thing. Now, below $10 million, different story. Below $5 million, it's, like a free-for-all. What happens? For those of you who say, but Jocko, PLG is better. No, PLG is better, sub $20 million. But once you're in the $70, $80 million range, you're going to see again that 40, 45%. It's only disproportionate to the marketing expenses, not as much to sales. But that's not what we're here for. What we're here for is that pink line or that purple line. Sorry, purple, clearly purple, Jocko. Purple. That line is if we take the cost of marketing and sales and we divide that over the past public quarters, the revenue of the past public, and we divide that by the net new revenue. Okay? New revenue. Look at what happens. This is the part where I want you to see is like that line is going up. It seems to be flattening out a little bit, but that line has gone from 140% to 228%. This was created by Benchsites, by David Spitz from Benchsites for me. Ladies and gentlemen, that line is the problem. That's why I feel like we're the epidemiologists on January 2020. And that line represents, that ain't stopping at this point in time. And so why does that line go up? Why is that line keep going up? All I can say is trust your own eyes. Like when we look at that line going up, we have a clear explanation and we can say, oh, we're going to lower the cost. Lowering the cost won't solve the problem. Cost efficient growth won't solve the problem. It put a dent in it down here. We see this line? It went down because we dropped, in right around January 2022, we started letting go of people foreseeing this. And so we started, you'll see a little bit of impact on the cost savings. But after that, line went straight up. Trust your own eyes. And this is the following. This leads to the following. Look, I'm not opening up more emails. Like, are you kidding me? Like, email is now, I read email twice a week at most. Twice a week I read email. For those of you who try to reach out to me via email, yeah, I'm sorry, I just don't respond. I don't communicate that way any longer. So email I don't open up. And people who say, yes, but the unsubscription rate we're still operating at the X 1% unsubscription rate. Yeah. You're only giving me the first email response on subscription rate. What about the second? If you send me a sequence, do you know what the unsubscription rate is at the second, third, fourth, fifth email that you send me? Send me the unsubscription rate of a sequence of 8 emails. Not only that, and as I demonstrated in the past, I'm using Superhuman. If somebody spams me, I block the entire domain. I mean, like nobody, not even your CEO, will ever able to reach me again. You spam me, I spam you, anti-spam. That's why that line is going up. Are we clicking on text messages in SMS? Absolutely not. UPS says your package is ready for pickup. Yeah, that's a phishing attack, right? Am I clicking more on boxes when I go to a website to sign up for a new newsletter? Heck no. None of that. All that stuff has stopped working. SEO stopped working to the same extent. Economically, it has become a different viable model. That is the reason why this entire thing is going up. That's what I mean with trust your own eyes. And so we can start cost saving, but that won't solve the problem. From a VC perspective, again, if you're a venture capitalist, you want more growth at a lower cost. That is a fantastic perspective. But from an operator perspective, you go, like, how do I sell it to my customers? How do I get to my customers in the first place so I can sell it to them? That is the problem of revenue operations. That is the problem we need to solve. And that problem takes us to the go-to-market model. A go-to-market model that historically proven to work, but has stopped working. That historic model that worked was grow at all costs. When we do grow at all costs, we have everybody, the founder, the CEO, the head of revenue, the head of marketing, everybody, the CEO, everybody is doing the same thing, grow at all costs. And so we all went that same route, but now we got different routes. VCs are taking the route of cost-efficient growth, which they may have to completely understand. But what are we, the operational people, going to grow? Because we can't just say, oh, we're going to lower cost. You're a rapid growth company. That takes me to the next figure 2. Okay, what you'll see here is the standard growth curve, S growth curve. All of us share in common that we have a dot somewhere on this growth curve. Whether you're at, like $1 million here early on in the beginning, where I'm sitting in front of, like $1 million, you're here, $10 million, you're something down here, blah, blah, blah. And at the top, you have achieved, total market share or, domination, whatever that is. Like think of you as PowerPoint, Excel, or something like that, right? Or Adobe. You're in the Walhalla, right? So you're at the top down here. What you'll see is that there are essentially 3 growth curves that create that growth curve. That growth curve originates from 3 curves. First and foremost, I'm going to line that up, that growth curve. I'm going to make that a little fat, like let's make that 12. That growth curve is the acquisition growth. Now, in the beginning, you see all the purple, everything of the total growth curve equates to all of acquisition, right? Early on, first $5, $10 million, most of your growth is going to come from acquisition. That's normal. Later on, you're going to see that starts to pipe out, right? It starts. Why? If you're McKinsey, you already know the Fortune 2000 companies. You're not going to acquire another 2000 Fortune 2000 companies. There are no more. You already have everything. And so at that point in time, you're going to not start selling newer clients, but what you're going to see, you're going to start to sell expansion sales. Right? And so you get that curve. So after a while, McKinsey, Microsoft, all these large firms, when they have achieved their maturity, they're doing expansion sales. Now, when you add these two up in SaaS, they should not add up to the total. They actually fall short. That's where that curve comes in, the retention curve. And this curve, ladies and gentlemen, is the most important curve. Now, I got to scale this properly. In order for viewers' ego, I had to, sorry, that was a joke. You will understand it. I have to make this to scale, and it's going to be something more like this. Okay, get the joke now? Okay, and so what we see down here, most of the sales in SaaS, actually that expansion and that acquisition sales later on, and I'm talking about year 15, 20, like Adobe 30 years in, or Adobe switched to SaaS mid 2010, right? If you see that, right, then you are most of your revenue, most of the recurring revenue that you achieve comes from your retention dollars. That's that line. That's where your revenue comes from. That's where your growth comes from. And we say we don't call it growth. I get that, right? We call it like expansion or retention, we call it retention or renewal or something like that. But folks, from a revenue operations perspective, it is the same as everything. It has a win rate, a high win rate. It has a sales cycle, long, could be a year, could be a month, could be a week, could be a click, whatever it is. And it has a certain dollar figure associated to it. It's just another number. That number that we call just another number attributes 90+% of the entire revenue stream and literally mirrors the full growth curve. That thick black line, that retention line, that's what's driving the entire recurring revenue growth engine. That engine, how do I retain a customer? You have heard me say this before. How do you retain a customer? You say that based on a basic statement, which is the law, or like what I call the first principle of recurring revenue. Recurring revenue, you already know all this, and repeat after me and say recurring revenue is the result of recurring impact. No recurring impact, no recurring revenue, right? And so retention is the result of recurring impact. Expansion is the result of, hey, you need to impact. And I can tell you, acquisition too, if you don't deliver the impact to a customer, you're not going to get new customers. If the word gets out that you don't deliver that, so that is a first principle. That first principle says everything is focused. That you want everything, all the recurring revenue you want comes from recurring impact. That's the key. Okay. Now, that is nowhere depicted in this. That is, however, depicted in this. That down here, that thing, that's impact. And I'll write it over it. So I'll use a text box. I'll write it. It's going to be in back. That thing is impact. And so quality, that is impact. The way we measure quality inside a recurring Revops is the way we deliver quality. Ladies and gentlemen, it's all about impact. And none of the people in go-to-market thinking about that. They're thinking about driving recurring revenue. No. You're putting the cart in front of the horse. That is the problem we're trying to solve today. To shift an organization to do that requires what we call a phase shift. I'm going to talk about that briefly at that. We got 5 minutes left. So So I'm going to show you down here where the problem comes. I have that S-curve, same S-curve that I spoke about a second ago. Previously, we talked all about scalability. Scalability. That, doing all that essentially is the grow at all cost. Grow at all cost stands for, hey, as long as I can scale it, as long as I spend more money and I get it, that is that particular. I wanted it in purple so we can clearly stand out. Scalability equals growth at all costs. And so that is how we measured the maturity of a company. How much revenue do you have? Oh, you're 200 million. You're going to go IPO. You're a billion. You're a unicorn. Your valuation is a unicorn, 200 million. Well, it's about whatever, 100 million, 120 million. But oh, you're a unicorn. Oh, you got a $50 million B round. That is how we measured maturity of the company. Folks, it wasn't mature. Companies were running immature JTM models. And so what we see is that it is okay to be unscalable early on. Of course, if you're less than $10 million, you're unscalable. That's why you got funding. Otherwise, you will be a mom and pop shop, right? And that scalability is all driven by process. That scalability is all, can you repeat the process? If you figure out how something works, can you make it work in a repeatable way? That is all what that is about. Oh, double S, my bad. That's all about process. And sustainability. Sustainability, that's all about metrics. We now need metrics. We need to know what is the cost of a particular GTM motion. How expensive is that click going to cost us, the seller, right? And durability, folks, that is simple. That's all about impact. Now, here's the thing. We all look at PLG and we go, like, it's a fantastic motion. It is indeed. PLG naturally does all these three things at the top: process, metrics, and impact. Automatically, it naturally gravitates towards that. It naturally gravitates towards the customers that are most profitable, because those who are not simply unsubscribe. Go like, yeah, not my kind of thing. Metrics driven. Any PLG knows every click, every metric, and it's automatically on impact. No impact, customer's gone. So what you'll see is that we are now trying to help as Revops. We're trying to say to people, okay, stop being addicted to scalability, right? You need to move to sustainability in order to get the metrics in. Can you measure per GTM motion? What is your GTM motion? Oh, I'm using an SDR sales organization. I'm using a PLG sales organization, and so on. Right? That takes a shift, and that shift is what we call a phase shift. And those phase shifts are hard to make. What you see down here is how hard these are to make. I highly encourage a SaaStr one by the head of HashiCorp, where he talks about like how the problems of phase shifts for us to switch from this scalability mode, primarily growth at all costs, to this upper where we do scalability, sustainability, durability. That won't go overnight. That takes 18 months. And at 18 months, you're going to see GTM is becoming an increasing importance. We are driving that thing up. It's becoming more and more and more important. And it's going to take the entire world to take about 18 months to adopt all that and to implement all that. We have to make sure that like things are scalable, aka there's a process behind it, that they're sustainable. Can we measure it? Can we measure how much we spent on the headcount that attributed to X $100,000? And we need to make sure that the product impact does what it does and that it starts helping us to grow. That is, like what I had in store for you today. Minor note, and I'm going to show you what the transition is, and then we'll switch it back to Ivan. What we see down here historically has been the GTM motion. Those motions have started to shift. Like we see what we call the PLG motion. Note at the top, I'm establishing normalized language because PLG can now be applied everywhere. So at the top, it says no touch, low touch, medium touch, high touch. This is from David Skok around 2012, 13. He designed this as an entrepreneur, as one of for all of us. David Skok, you can look him up. And what you'll see down here, this is now moving. And today we're seeing pretty much PLG, PLS, and SLG. PLG, product-led growth. SLG, sales-led growth. And if I'm fishing in the bucket of PLG and I'm starting enterprise sales on top of that, I get sales-led growth. These are the motions that we see today that we're now trying to map our motions to, that we're trying to make sustainable, and we're trying to make scalable, sustainable, and durable. This is the je ne sais quoi that we're trying to do as we maneuver through customers. You're not on your own. I am happy to report I am here to help you. Here are the 6 models, all of you who know this. And lo and behold, as many of you may have seen on LinkedIn, the book is out. A tax book with all of that. It will be available in Europe shortly. Folks, this thing is a behemoth. This is everything I have to offer, like in a book format, like all models and everything. It's a defensive weapon. Yeah, it's the size of my head or bigger. So like that book is out and it will be on Amazon on November 8th. That was it. That's Revops. That's the continuation of the story. It was a pleasure and a treat for me to be here. How can I help, Ivan?
Yeah, Jacko. I would. I just send you an email with a couple of thoughts. Yeah, you're not opening it, right? Yeah. Well, I want to dedicate a couple of minutes to have a conversation with you, because I think this is a natural evolution of what we showed so far, and we discussed it. We are living in the era of, like, if I just came to the comparison with the movie stars, like every movie star, there is a period of his life where they just want to be famous, more movies, more revenue, and then at one time they decide to do something for the world, adopt children, be sustainable, live healthy. They're like, oh, I have so much money, I need to live better. And now I think it's just right, this resemblance. We need to think about the sustainability of our businesses. And what we spoke previously with the other guys is that today, and I think this is a question to you about the business founders and the leaders, because we speak about the phase shift, and we speak about now moving from grow at all cost and scalability to thinking about how I sustain the business, how I make my product more qualitative and with more quality, so that I have more retention, more staying customers, more high pay customers. And what you're going to say to the business leaders that are now trying to find their way into the SaaS world, into the recurring revenue world, because POG, as you mentioned, I think it's the sweet spot, or something else. If you achieve the perfect POG engine, you are the best in the world. But what you're going to say to the people that are now they maybe think they have a great product, the next Adobe or Microsoft or something, but what do they else need?
Okay, the problem here is the following, and I want everybody to carefully listen to this, because this is what you're going to run into. This sustainability will not solve your problem. It will not. It will make it worse. PLG is not going to solve your problem. Neither is ChatGPT. PLG is neither a lead generation campaign nor a sales methodology. It's not, right? And at Metric, as soon as you get it, PLG works really well for that lower $10 million, get to the first 20,000 and so on. That works really well. It's a hyper growth engine. It's fantastic. After that, the costs are extraordinary. Look no further than Monday.com and look how far they are up. They're spending 68 cents on the dollar in order to acquire a customer, right? Something like that, something extraordinary. So it is. So let's be aware that the word sustainable as Revops, if you're a revenue architect, you have to mention to your customer, sustainable growth is not a solution to your problem. It is a stage of evolution, but it's only going to make things worse, right? If you're not careful. And the second thing is like chat. So what is the solution? Folks, this is the problem that we keep working on every day in, day out. The problem is always the same. Can we just sell to customers and help them achieve the impact that we designed the product to be? Can we just do that? Because all of us, every CEO I work with wants a shortcut. How do I grow faster? What is my hacker way, right? Like, how do I hack my way to success? Here's my way to hack to success. Get the right customers, sell a product that works, deliver the impact that you promised. Do that. That customer will join you in the journey of creating more growth. It's as simple as that. Now, when you go up on that S curve, when you go up, the problem is that you want to keep growing. You want to keep growing. And so you throw more at acquisition sales. Acquisition is very expensive. You go up on that S curve, your costs are going up. Since your engine becomes less efficient, more salespeople you have, the average goes down, the more costs you keep throwing up. The only way that you can go up on that S curve by the cost coming down is by delivering the impact, because then customers start to expand, customers start to help you to grow. It is as simple as that. Everything else, to me, it's just everybody's trying to hack their way, and they're unable to get there, right? And it doesn't matter whether the engine breaks at $50 million, whether it breaks at 150 or it breaks at 500, or as you nowadays see, it sometimes breaks at X billion dollars in revenue, right?
Oh, yes. So we're not going back to the growing cathode costs era.
I would say no. I would say companies below $10 million grow at all costs is quite okay. That's where that is designed for, right? But then you need to make a shift. Now, follow this, Ivan. Okay, we know that approximately at $70 million, at $70 million, your revenue is coming no longer from acquisition, and this is across hundreds. This is an average, right? I mean, I've run into over 1,000 SaaS companies. At about $70 million, your revenue has changed of the way how it is comprised of, and it will be less dependent on acquisition and be very dependent on the other factors. Now, it takes 2 years approximately to make that shift in that your organization is very acquisition-driven to an organization that's very impact-driven. That growth at all cost mode that is sub $10 million, it takes 2 years to shift out of that. Now, Ivan, tell me, what is T2D3? What does it stand for?
T2D3.
Yeah. T2D3. Triple, triple, double, 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 right? And so it is a known growth curve, which is remarkably accurate for companies who grow to $10 million. Let's say you start measuring right after the company surpasses $1 million. So generally, you get somewhere between $1.5 and $2 million. And the company in the subsequent 2 years grows triple, triple, right? Then in the following years, it grows double, double, double.
Yes.
Right? So if I'm at $70 million, am I in the triple growth curve, Ivan, or am I in the double growth curve?
Double.
Double. Okay. So I'm going to go, I'm telling you at $70 million, I got to be at my destination. So it's going to take me 2 years. So 1 year before I'm at 35 and 1 year before I'm at 17 and a half. That means between 15 and $20 million, I need to make the shift occur. And at $15, $20 million, walk into any organization at $15 and $20 million, nobody's thinking about shifting to the do. Now, let me ask you, Ivan, do you remember when you were in school, right? You were in school. Did you go to university?
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago, so I do remember that.
Okay. Now, you went from, let's say, elementary school to university or something, like college or university, right?
Yeah.
Was there a difference in culture? Did you know when you made that shift?
Of course, yes. Okay.
Clear shift, right? Clear. Yeah. It's a marquee point. Like, okay, you live with your parents, you live on your own in a room somewhere, right?
Yeah.
somebody makes food every night. Oh, you gotta either eat junk food or right? That's the difference.
Yeah. Very bad transformation. Yeah, exactly.
In the world of growth, we never make that transformation. We never have that maturity that we go, okay, our growth and any and all cost stage has come to an end. We need to now move into the sustainable stage. We don't have that stage. We don't make an executive team doesn't go for a 2-week offsite and is being trained on what is happening next. No. They just meander in the direction. And as a result, the growth at all costs never gets let go.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Help me out here. I have a question for you. I'm at $2 million. Who's the most important person in my organization at $2 million? Who is the one that I'm taking out to lunch if I'm the CEO?
The CFO.
At 2 million?
2 million, yeah. Yeah, well, somebody from the product team. Sales,
the head honcho. At about $10 million, I'm taking the revenue leader, the VP of sales. At $20 million, I'm taking the CMO because I need my salespeople need to be fed, right? At $50 million, I'm ramping to go IPO. I'm taking out my CFO. At no point in time on this journey is the head of customer success, the person who generates 95% of all recurring revenue, the favorite person of the CEO, being taken out to lunch. No point in time. That's a mind shift. That's a shift that we're not making. We're skipping that shift. That's a problem.
Yeah, I think it's when we speak about models, it's more clear what leaders need to do. it's exactly what you're telling, that they're not doing this or they're not prepared for this. It's the same comparison with, you're raising a child. You are, as a parent, you're preparing for the child going into university or going into kindergarten, because you know that there is a transformation shift for you and for him as well. But as a business owner, it's a really great perspective, and I think it's something that it can be changed, but it's like very hard things to do. So you need to plan.
You need to plan, and the role of planning that is the role of revenue operations. You need to understand the phases. First phase, process. Second phase, metrics. Third phase, impact of the product. You can't go to impact of the product, right? The impact of the product is always important, but the focus on that as the primary importance, you can't do that at $1 million. You're just trying to win the best deals that you can. You're trying to bring, and so you're just doing whatever needs to be done to get to 2 to 3 to 4. And then you figure it out, then you deploy process and you get to 10, right? And then you're finally, operational. And that is a struggle where most of our audience today is struggling with to get to that point. And that, in that case, growth at all costs is still a viable option. VCs, venture capitalists like Bessemer, they interest in 10 million and beyond, right? They're focused at late stage growth. So to them, that path of, hey, we need to be sustainable growth is okay for their part of the journey.
So I'll ask you a question, and we can end this. But if the people are going to read the whole book that you just was presenting, are they going to be very aware of the journey that is ahead of them?
Absolutely. You're going to be aware that you nowadays, when you see a curve that goes like this, you recognize that's an exponential curve. And when you see a line like this, you go, that's a linear curve.
Yes.
First and foremost, we need to learn what the fundamentals are. We're running recurring revenue machinery is the most advanced business model machinery invented that we have till date. It's the most powerful, but it's like this gigantic Ferrari, and we're just driving it like a lawnmower every day, right? We're using it as a lawnmower. That's the problem, right? And then, we let other people who don't understand the engine tell us, folks, it's just all about sales. It's all about acquiring deals. No, it's not, because if I acquire a deal at $20,000 and it only delivers me $18,000 in revenue, I'm losing $2,000 on it, right? And bad reps and so we cannot be told, and that's the age that is going to shift. I believe what we're going to see in the next 2 years, that Revops will become the intelligence function if we play it right. Play it right. But we got to be a trade. We cannot be an opinion-based, it's got to be based on pure scientific fundamentals, mathematics, data-driven systems and processes. That's what it's got to be. It cannot be just tools and, implement this and see what happens there. It cannot be. If that's the case, then Revops will continue to be, or will be operations for Salesforce as a Salesforce operator or some kind.
We are entering, I think, year of mindset shift of the business leaders, and they need to go academical. They need to learn things. They need to be really, data-driven, statistical. And I think when you speak about, who is going to launch, yes, you need to think about the success team way before it actually, you realize that. And also very important, beyond 10 million of ARR, things starting to, you need to start thinking about this phase shift. But before that, you also need to be prepared that even eventually, if your business grows, you're going to get to that tough moment, because it is a tough moment of transition and transformation.
It is. And I'll give you an example of the problem we're going to solve. At $1 million, and I've worked for myself for companies and worked with a gazillion of $1 million companies. Nobody talks about process. Early on, I thought I could help people with process, and I realized that a single person and $1 million revenue can make a bigger impact than any process ever can, right? Not only that, the CEO, the founders, they are proud we are not using process. Then at $15 million, right? Okay, so listen to this, right? At $1 million, let's say it's $7 or $8 million, I'm getting an A round, a hefty A round, a B round. I'm going to get $20 million because I achieved $8 million, right? Yeah. I'm 20-person company, 20, 30-person company, or something like that. Okay, now I'm getting like a $20 million round. What am I going to do with that money? I'm going to spend it on two things: more marketing, more sales, marketing campaigns, and salespeople, right? Yes. That's what So I'm going to grow now with that $20 million from about 20 people to, let's say, about 100, 150 people. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm scaling the organization enormously fast to an enormous scale. I'm going to go 5x, 10x to people in an environment that says we hate process. So we have no process. We're going to 5x, 10x the companies. And all these people are joining and going like, what kind of S show is this down here, right? They don't have process. And so what they are going to do is they're going to bring the process with them from the company they came and say like, oh, let me give you my process. Now
Yes.
what we have at $15 to $20 million is like a kitchen drawer. We got this whole thing. And this doesn't happen as an exception. This is the norm. This is by far the norm. That is the problem that Revops finds itself in. And then they have to say, okay, how do I structure all this? That is what you see me talk about the models and say like, hey, here's you use those 6 models, understand it, separate it, like put in a kitchen divider in the kitchen sink, put the knives in the knives and the forks with the forks and start structuring it. And then suddenly the structure becomes clear. And that allows us to grow to 50, 100, $150 million.
Yeah. So I think it's when we speak about the culture within the startups, scale-ups ecosystem, there is some kind of a jerk when we speak about growing, and like growing in the perspective of the business leader and owner, it's not about growing internally in processes. It's about growing in headcount, so I can show to the world, oh, we are hiring, and it's growing, of course, in acquisition, in revenue, and marketing expansions, and whatever. So that's the shift that and we need to preach on about. That is the shift actually that we need to move into the minds of the leaders. So they need to start thinking about, processes are also sexy. Processes are also essential, and they're really vital part before it starts to get really messy and inevitable.
Okay, what I'm excited about is we are seeing the rise in Europe of startups that are becoming more and more influential in the world, right? Monday.com being one of them, but there's plenty of them. And what you're going to see is that European doctrine is process driven. When you go through a European school, you're going to get the doctrine of process. And the Netherlands is known, Germany is known for that, and so you're going to see.
That's great, yeah. That's
right.
great.
So we're going to see European companies are going to be growing because through this process, their engineers are more process driven by the nature of it. And so, so you're going to see that America is more opportunistic. It's not as process driven. It's just innovative, right? And very sales driven. Give more comp and see what growth at all costs. But we could argue that we're entering the decade of European startups, and it starts with revenue operations being the revenue architecture role behind it all.
Yeah. Thank you, Jacco. It was really, refreshing, motivating last section of our conference today. Amazing insight. Really looking forward. I hope really that we actually more motivated business leaders that we're seeing today as not demotivating them. It's an interesting path. It's a hard way, but it's actually the more right way. This is the way, as we are also having the title of our conference. Really happy to have you next year again. We're thinking about doing something physical in the heart of Europe, but I'm going to share more with you, not on email, as I already know.
Yes, I would say if I can put in a request right now, there's 2 cities I would love to do it. Please do. I pick either Amsterdam because it's closed everywhere and I can get my junk food, or Portugal because it's one of the most beautiful places So I'm all in for Portugal. I probably can come over.
We voted already. We chose Portugal.
Okay, there you go. And then I will be in the Netherlands coming November. I think there's some conference that I will be there, and right. And so I'll see you all there. Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to continue the relationship with all of you.
Have a great day. Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, well, guys, I don't know for you, but I'm really, really, filled out with insights, information, thoughts. Just to wrap it up, we spoke about the importance of revenue operations in the whole go-to-market journey of a company. Yes, we saw Jacco speaking about introducing revenue operations or, initiating this phase shift after 10 million of ARR. And yes, we also saw other people speaking about inserting the mentality of preparing this shift, before the 10 million of ARR, and also business leaders being more process driven, not so much revenue driven, and also business leaders thinking about the singularity moment, as I can relate to that when we speak about how Jacko actually, represents the final phase where most of your revenue is going to come from retention. So you need to think about that from day one. And we're going to see tomorrow lots of specific examples how you can achieve process excellence, and not only. So thank you so much for being together with us today. Looking forward for the next day tomorrow. Stay tuned. Once again, the link is the other one, or if you just lost the link, you can go on the YouTube page of RevBrains and you can find it. Have a great day, have a great evening, have a great night, wherever you are. Thank you so much.